Good afternoon, Saturday, April 14th, joined here by Takahashi-san from Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Kana? Bangladesh?
No, Southeast Asia.
Where are we?
Ho Chi Minh.
Ho Chi Minh, yay, Vietnam. Takahashi-san from Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, Uno-san and Kimoto-san. Today we are discussing the third industrial revolution in this series. We have been looking at the infrastructure, the infrastructure that drives innovation. Basically, we have two industrial revolutions. First revolution powered by coal. The communication technology was steam-powered printing presses, and the transportation infrastructure was powered by the steam engine powering trains and ships. Then the second industrial revolution from the USA, originated from the USA, driven by oil. The communication infrastructure, telephone later became the radio, the television were introduced, and the means of transportation was powered by the combustion engine. Cars, trucks, everything moves. Ships, everything moves with the combustion engine. Now we're heading for the third industrial revolution, and that's what Rifkin is talking about, the third revolution. What is it? How does it drive us? He sketched the problem about the finity of our natural resources. We were heavily dependent upon oil, not only to drive us and to drive the engines that drive the economy, but also as a raw material for a lot of goods that we consume on a daily basis. That means that if we want to grow, the demand for these natural resources will increase, and since we know that, there is also the speculative wave. That means that actually the fact that we are so heavily dependent upon this natural resource, oil, will lead to a rapid increase in prices, and that will put a brake on our potential to grow. So we are basically stuck in a platform that will not allow for a lot of growth. So Rifkin is actually suggesting that we are basically moving from the second industrial revolution platform to the third industrial revolution platform. We have been looking at this, and he is basically suggested to do this in Europe and in China. And it's of course very interesting to see, okay, how is these ideas, how have they been received, and how are the countries that are serious about this idea, how are they doing, and what can we learn in Japan? Where do we stand? That's something we need to look at in the future. But where does Japan stand, and can they pick up? Can they catch up with other countries that are leading? Now. Already announced on Monday. Today we will have a look at Germany, how they are doing, and so let's have a look here. A few seconds of video to refresh your mind where we were at, and then we will have a look at Germany. We will also have a look today at IoT. We have a look at security concerns. We have a look at net neutrality. We will have a look at, okay, how does this transition? What would it look like? What is necessary in order
You said
to get
net neutrality?
net neutrality? Yes.
What is this?
Net neutrality. That's something that we will look at later. But it basically means that internet infrastructure cannot be monopolized by anyone. Like, for example, what's happening in China right now. There's a big firewall that prevents people in China to actually access certain information or certain platforms, like Google, for example. So that is a big threat for the future and for the
I mean,
infrastructure.
left or wing, right.
So basically there are a lot of things going on. We have the dark web, we have the lack of net neutrality, we have the vulnerability in terms of privacy. So there are a lot of issues there that we need to deal with that are very serious. And the question is whether we will be able to deal with it. We have seen, for example, the whole commotion that started to that arose last week with Facebook, or very recent history with Facebook, where a private organization could lay their hands on private data of people, and that was used to influence the elections in the United States. And how are we going to deal with that? Facebook is everywhere, and they know everything.
You're talking about Facebook?
Facebook. Yeah. All right. So, but let's start with Germany. A few seconds.
So, in that first day with the Chancellor, we discussed the third industrial revolution, a new convergence of communication, energy, and transportation to manage, power, and move Germany. At the end of the day, in a private session, the Chancellor said, Mr. Rifkin, we will have this third industrial revolution here in Germany.
Okay, so basically that's I think Mr. Rifkin is greatly exaggerating his role in this, because actually the whole idea about the third industrial revolution and moving away from fossil fuels to renewable energy is something that arose in the 1980s. I think the 1980s, beginning of the 1980s, when the Grüne, the Green political party, became a major force in Germany. Basically, the way that this party started was in response to nuclear energy, but it became a major political movement, and they have been advocating the moving away from nuclear power, moving away from fossil fuels, and going towards renewable energy. So in Germany, this movement was already existing, not just because Mr. Rifkin just had a meeting with Angela Merkel, but anyway, that he can do that. All right. So, in 1980, complete abandonment of nuclear and petroleum energy.
Finish the video.
So this video is just okay. Where did we leave off with Rifkin? So about this announcement that he made of that Angela Merkel made. Okay, we're going to move away from the second industrial revolution platform onto the third industrial revolution platform. So then they set targets to do that. So this movement, as I said before, started. Maybe I should make it bigger. Started already in the 1980s, and the objective was a complete abandonment of nuclear and petroleum energy. Economic growth is possible without increased energy consumption, was the idea. Reorientation of policy from demand to supply and shift from centralized to distributed generation. From centralized generation, so Germany has four major power producers. Well, not only producers but importers, Rewe and E.ON, and two other big players that together produce all the energy that is needed in Germany. So we see that in a lot of countries where only a few players are dominating the entire energy market. But it's vertical integration. It came into existence because economies of scale were prevalent. It was not efficient to just maintain to generate a little energy and having to distribute that, invoice that. The overhead was simply too big. So economies of scale were prevalent, but they said, okay, well, the future is renewable energies, and with the renewable energy, we will have to move away from the idea of centralized energy generations to a more distributed network with a lot of smaller players who can utilize an infrastructure that will enable them to supply and demand excess levels of energy that are being produced locally. The thing about solar energy, I mean, the sun only shines about half of the time during 24 hours. The other half, it's dark, so you cannot generate solar power. So during the time it's dark, you need to be able to retrieve your energy from elsewhere. Fortunately, at the other side of the world, the sun is shining. So if we can exchange this energy, you will be able to actually make solar energy, for example, viable. Same with wind energy, which is also fluctuating heavily.
You mean the focus on, instead of demand, we're going to focus on supply.
Right.
What does this mean, demand from supply?
So the reorientation from demand to supply. What was that? What was the meaning of that?
This former sentence: economic growth is possible.
Yes.
Without
increased energy consumption. Yes.
Increase. Okay. She said we don't need to increase energy consumption.
Right.
Let's control consumption.
That was this is not from Rifkin. This is the idea from Germany, the German policy at the time. They said, okay, well, we can grow the economy without increase of energy. It's not necessary.
Concept of former sentence, we need to consider for how to control supply instead of demand.
Right. How can we convert supply?
Control demand and we want to also control supply.
Right.
And centralized to distributed means...
so centralized meaning the big energy corporations to a decentralized...
Power plant to more smaller generation.
Right.
Okay, I understand.
Right. So efficiency and consumption targets. Efficiency targets, primary energy consumption base should actually be reduced. Base year is 2008. In 2014, they reduced primary energy consumption.
What do you mean primary energy? Like nuclear power plant, kind of huge energy consumption.
So
plant?
Yeah, exactly. So just the whatever you use to heat your house, to drive your car, to produce goods in factories, all that energy that's being used.
You said consumption means is users. What do you mean?
Consumption. Well,
usage.
So that's volume of usage. So basically the amount of gas, oil, and coal that is being absorbed.
In 2050, we're going to reduce to half.
Yes. Right. And that means reducing the consumption. For example, the waste that is the waste that is now, for example, in current housing, not through lack of isolation, the way that we are.
What's the difference between primary energy and the third line, gross electricity consumption? This is third line electricity. First
yes.
line is including everything.
Right. So basically, primary energy consumption is oil. That's all the fossil fuels.
So fossil fuel is reduced because of electricity.
Exactly.
Reduced. It means the other one is instead of electricity. What is the other one?
So we have the primary energy consumption, that base year 2008. That is the fossil fuels. Final energy productivity. Energy productivity means that basically the amount of energy that you need to put into For example, let's a very simple example that the way that they actually measure this, the energy efficiency, is how much energy it takes to raise the water temperature with 1 degree. It's a kind of like a standard in physics. So that energy productivity through the uses of technology will be able to use less and less energy to actually achieve this. So that basically this is an indication of how well we are successful in actually generating or using our natural resources without heat loss.
But by the way, what does mean gross electricity consumption reduce?
Gross electricity.
What does it mean? It means 25% at 2050, right?
Yes.
And
so we're going to reduce energy of electricity consumption.
What the other consumption? What other consumption? Electricity.
Electricity. We have, for example, gas, oil.
Wait a minute. Gas, oil is electricity.
No. We also use oil to drive engines. We use oil.
Oh, drive engines. Oh, I see.
Or factories or.
It means electricity means nuclear power plant or.
Yeah, everything. But basically, we use a lot of energy to create a lot of different sources of energy to create electricity. So we use oil, we use coal, we use wind, water. Water power, we use natural heat that comes up from the earth, thermal heat. We use sunlight to generate electricity. But so there's also something to be gained if we can actually reduce the amount of electricity that we need.
So just directly usage for combustion engine is not electricity.
That's not electricity. That's not electricity.
And the following is primary energy consumption in buildings.
In buildings, yeah.
Well, by 80% reduce?
Yes, by 2050. To make buildings much more energy efficient. They are the biggest source of CO2 buildings. The way that we heat our buildings and all the energy that we use inside of our buildings, they are the biggest source of energy, ahead of transportation, ahead of agriculture.
So last line, the final energy consumption in transport.
Right.
It means transport means
trucks, private cars.
I know. How they want to reduce energy consumption?
Well, I think a lot of it will be by increasing the efficiency, by reducing the number of vehicles that we are that we need to use through car sharing.
Number of vehicles.
And by making the cars that we are using more energy efficient, so we're now using oil and diesel and all kinds of.
Well, they can reduce energy consumption.
And that means EV.
That means EV. That means EV, but also electricity needs to be generated. But basically, if we start to engage in car sharing, if we
car sharing.
if we
car sharing.
Then the number of cars that we need is estimated that we only need about 20% of the cars that we are currently using. So in the future, the number of cars that will be drastically reduced. So I actually think that minus 40% is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
That's actually quite disappointing. Well, car sharing, etc.
Is this Europe?
This is Germany.
Germany.
This is Germany. These are the plans.
German targets.
Yes, these are the targets for Germany. So Germany is already like they have been thinking about this since 1980. They're very much ahead of the game. But what happens if Germany is actually successful and if they have finalized this transformation? It will give them a very unique and strong position in terms of competitiveness. Because the marginal costs that they need in order to for their communication, transportation, and power generation platform will go to the marginal costs will almost go to zero. That means that they will not be trapped, for example, in the rising oil prices, and that will give Germany a competitive leg up versus other countries.
I don't understand. Marginal cost zero? What do you mean?
Okay. Let me allow me to come back to that because that's going to be a big topic. Let's have a look at Germany.
Germany is in transition. One of the world's largest economies is pursuing an ambitious goal, switching to renewable energy. With a complete transformation of its energy infrastructure, the German energy market is entering a new age. Intelligent ideas, resolute action, and political will have made Germany a front-runner. Since the early 1990s, both companies and citizens have been investing in solar, wind, and bioenergy power plants. These investments are supported by an attractive and stable legal framework. Germany's energy revolution is well underway and moving forward with great momentum. More than 1.5 million renewable power plants have been installed in Germany over the past 25 years, a world record. Renewables now produce over 27% of the electricity consumed in Germany. But this is just the beginning. Germany's energy transition is pursuing ambitious goals. It is planned that by 2050, the emission of greenhouse gases will have been reduced by 80 to 95%. To achieve this, energy consumption will be reduced by 50%, and at least 80% of electricity will come from renewables. Offshore wind, onshore wind, and solar are the future pillars of Germany's energy supply. Sun and wind are fluctuating energy sources. Variations in generation caused by the weather must be balanced out. This means integrating renewable energy into the energy infrastructure is the main challenge. The existing electricity grid needs to be adapted, and grid participants need to be able to communicate in an intelligent network, a smart grid. More storage capacity for renewable energy needs to be built, and large investments will be needed to improve energy efficiency further. The fluctuating supply of electricity from renewables requires upgrades to be made to the entire power grid. An investment of over 35 billion euros is planned for the construction of high-voltage transmission lines, electricity autobahns, from the wind-rich north to major industrial regions. Large investments are also planned for the local distribution grids, as well as for new communication technologies that will quickly identify any bottlenecks. A transmission control center near Berlin constantly monitors energy flows through the grid to maintain the balance between production and consumption around the clock.
We have managed to integrate renewables into the market by employing innovative solutions, namely excellent forecasting tools, so that the market supply reflects what the consumers require. The way we have solved these issues so far makes me confident that we will continue to do so in the future. But in the next phase, increasing generation from renewables further, we will need to keep on innovating.
Energy storage systems are another key to integrating and using renewable energy optimally.
Siemens.
Large battery systems already help to stabilize the grid by compensating for fluctuations in real time. With an increasing share of fluctuating energy sources, the need for short as well as long-term energy storage grows.
Some people still accuse battery storage technologies of being too expensive and of not being able to compete with other power plants. We're proving the exact opposite right here because we also expect battery prices to drop significantly over the next couple of years. The advantage is that with 5 megawatts of battery storage, we are able to replace 50 megawatts of conventional power plant capacity.
The falling cost of solar power is making energy storage increasingly attractive for private households too. This led to around 10,000 solar battery systems being installed in German households in 2014 alone. Experts expect the market to expand tenfold by 2018.
In recent years, the energy transition and the significant commitments made by the federal government have led to a lot of photovoltaic installations. The next step in this value chain is energy storage, where we see massive potential for batteries in the coming years.
Increasing energy efficiency in all sectors is another pillar of the energy transition. Germany is one of the world's leading industrial nations in this field. The country already consumes less primary energy than 25 years ago. Energy consumption is becoming increasingly decoupled from economic growth. Buildings account for around 40% of Germany's energy consumption.
So, actually, we were talking
about
about
is used
this,
for
right?
heat.
1 second. This energy consumption and economic
Energy
growth.
consumption is becoming increasingly decoupled from
So it is possible to actually grow your economy without.
What is the orange one?
Orange is the energy consumption in gigawatt hour.
The blue one
Is
GDP.
is the GDP.
Oh, really like this?
Right.
Less energy and gross GDP.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Because consumers acknowledge the future so-called energy crisis.
Right. And it's, but we saw this in Japan too, right? After 2011, we had to close down the nuclear power plants, and all of a sudden,
Yes.
I don't know, 15% or something, energy consumption reduction. It was ridiculous how well we could save energy actually when it's really necessary. So it's also a sense of urgency that is necessary to drive behavioral changes. People actually becoming more aware of things, using less light at night becomes more and more acceptable. So it's possible. What we see in Germany. So basically this whole change is driven by a change in the financial sector. They have been very generous, giving loans to people who want to introduce like renewable energy sources and the uses of wind energy, solar energy. All these projects they have received financing in Germany. Governments that made it possible to do that with legislation that has led to Germany currently using 27% of the energy that they are consuming is from renewable sources. And they need to still invest heavily in the energy infrastructure. Heavily means 35 billion investments are being anticipated. 35 billion euro. Very significant innovation. A very innovation investment. China is also making investments. They are investing about 85 billion in the energy infrastructure, which will make it possible for the Chinese to start collecting renewable energy from their houses and from their local area, and being able to supply their excess excess energy and demand the deficient energy. So this will be a major investment.
They are investing for what in China?
For the energy infrastructure.
What is it?
Energy infrastructure is basically that they are an infrastructure that will enable you to move energy from A to B. So in terms of electricity, if your house has a solar panel, then you want to be on the energy infrastructure. Why? Because otherwise you can only get energy from your solar panel at the moment the sun is shining. If not, then basically you need to throw away that energy. So if you can be on that.
For what? They spend lots of money for what?
They spend lots of money to create this kind of infrastructure to enable people.
Solar panel?
Yeah, to enable people to do solar panels or wind energy. So in the Netherlands we have been already since the 1990s became very popular for farmers to put windmills on their land to generate energy, but and to actually offer that energy to the energy companies to make a little extra money to make ends meet. So this kind of infrastructure is necessary. You need to be able to offer it. You need to be able. It needs to be measured. And needs to. And there's also a way that these farmers and private households are able not only to supply but also demand renewable energy from this network.
Okay.
And it will even become possible to go peer to peer. Like say, okay, you have a solar panels on your roof, and the guy next to you has a Tesla car, so it needs to be charged. So basically, you can offer that energy directly to your neighbor using the smart technology to go direct peer to peer.
Economic growth. Buildings account for around 40% of Germany's energy consumption,
40%.
most of which is used for heating. The federal government offers unique incentives for upgrading the energy performance of buildings. The country
exactly
has
unique.
the
Netherlands
largest
has it
building
too.
stock in Europe. Houses that produce more energy than they consume are already being built in Germany today. From 2021 onwards, all new buildings in the European Union must meet a zero energy standard.
Zero energy.
Deutschland hat
So, a zero energy standard means that they need to produce at least as much energy as they consume. That means that basically they need to have a solar power panels on their roofs. They need to be energy efficient.
Nothing by themselves.
Right. So basically, they need to become autonomous in the way footprint, zero footprint, as they every house can be used to actually generate energy.
Germany has set itself ambitious energy efficiency targets. These will result in a lot of activity, as there are still a great deal of economically attractive investments that can be made in this field. At the same time, the energy efficiency market in Germany is already very diverse. We have calculated that over 800,000 people already work in the energy efficiency field in Germany, generating an annual turnover of around 160 billion euros.
World-leading German research institutes and universities work closely with industry to bring innovations to the market. Whether for wind or solar power, grid integration, energy storage, or energy efficiency, Germany is home to outstanding research and development facilities. Fraunhofer ISA is Europe's largest solar research institute. It is in high demand as a partner for businesses and scientists around the world.
Wir sind immer noch am Anfang der Energiewende.
We are still at the beginning of the energy transition. So many exciting topics lie ahead. For example, integrating fluctuating solar and wind power while guaranteeing grid stability. All this will be developed and come to market in the coming years. All of the technologies we are developing here will be used around the world because the economic competitiveness of solar and wind power will inevitably lead to a transition to renewables everywhere.
umstellen auf die erneuerbaren Energien.
The ZSW Center for Solar Energy and Hydrogen Research explores innovative energy storage technologies. Hydrogen can solve the problem of long-term seasonal storage of excess energy. Power-to-gas pilot projects are delivering very promising results.
Der aktuelle Entwicklungsstand ist so.
In principle, these systems can be built today because the central components are already available. You can actually purchase these systems now, but there is still a great need for further development.
Es gibt aber dennoch einen ganz erheblichen Entwicklungsbedarf.
Germany Trade and Invest is the investment promotion agency of the Federal Republic of Germany. With offices around the world, Germany Trade and Invest is the first point of contact for international companies looking to enter the German market. The agency's industry experts offer active support free of charge in all matters related to foreign direct investment and setting up business in Germany.
Germany Trade and Invest helps international companies to become part of Germany's energy transition. Our industry experts help businesses free of charge and at any time by answering questions such as, where is the right location for us in Germany? What is the tax and legal framework? How big is the sales market? And which research partners can I find here? We have all the key answers needed to invest in Germany and enter the market successfully.
With over 27% of the electricity consumed in Germany now coming from renewables, the first step in the energy transition has been made. Now it's time to master the complete integration of renewables and to reduce energy consumption further.
Wir sind ja mit dem Erneuerbaren Energiengesetz gestartet.
The introduction of the Renewable Energy Sources Act was an important first step in creating clarity for businesses.
Für die Unternehmen zu schaffen.
This has made it possible for international investors to engage in Germany. The model on offer here is highly attractive for international markets.
Anbietet, sind, denke ich, für den internationalen Markt hochattraktiv.
The energy transition offers both German and international companies the unique opportunity to develop innovative products in Germany today. Solutions for smart grids, energy storage, and energy efficiency that will meet the world's future needs.
We should be absolutely clear. Germany is the leading market for renewables. The challenge now is to gain experience with this technology so that it can be used more diversely and to expand its use throughout the country to create an alternative to conventional power plants.
Wir gehen davon aus,
We expect the market to be ready for a massive deployment of energy storage systems as early as 2016. The energy transition remains at the top of the political agenda in Germany and continues to enjoy widespread public support.
heute beginnt die Energiewende.
The energy transition is starting to become economically interesting all around the world. And this is why the relevant markets, such as wind turbines and solar panels, are growing so strongly.
So stark expandieren.
A project as large as the energy transition, which requires so much innovation and thus investment, will continue to provide a solid framework for entrepreneurs to invest in Germany, both now and in the future.
Germany's transition to renewables is a multi-generational project of enormous proportions. It is creating outstanding opportunities for companies from all over the world. Germany has taken the first step. Be a part of it. Shape the future with us. Germany Trade and Invest is here to support you.
Okay, so in this video we can see that Germany is taking this transition very, very seriously. They invested a lot of money. They are very serious both in the legal sphere as well as in the collaboration with the research and development. They have opened up their technology also for foreign partners, so that they become they can actually attract investment in Germany and also become a major player in other countries when they are ready to make the same steps. So I think Germany has made a very important strategic decision a long time ago already to go in this direction, and they are very actively trying to sell this technology and this experience to other countries worldwide. Which I believe this is unavoidable for other countries to participate. So it will give Germany a leg up in terms of competitiveness and in terms of becoming a leader in this market.
Several years ago, 3 years ago, I visited Shimizu Construction Building.
Right.
And they are doing the same thing. Like
smart buildings with
reduce 80% of energy from
right,
this building,
right,
down to 20% of energy consumption. Just exactly like you showed here.
Right, right. So energy reduction of consumption is of course a very logical first step because if we don't need the energy, then it's already a big step forward. If we then on top of that we can actually start using those buildings to generate energy, then we come very close to
not only generate. They told me they don't use energy.
Right.
Okay, they don't use energy because sunshine just building. They try to control sunshine get inside building.
Right.
Solutions.
Yeah, they have these kind of like the sun catchers where they actually use the heat of the sun to actually heat the building.
Yes, yes, go through the building. Yes. And they try to make an effort. They can do that, but new building is capable. But they have current existing building a lot.
Right,
so
that's a good point. That's a good point. So that there is actually. So how are we going to go through that transition? Because we have an existing stock of buildings. So how are we going to do that? That means that we actually need to retrofit a lot of the buildings that we have already and make them much more energy efficient.
But they told me just renovating the energy consumption is very they need to spend the cost, so very difficult to change.
Right. Right, so they need to do that. I will come back to that because actually that's one of the major things. That
I think I'm astounding issue is China. China is using in winter season. They are encourage them to use not encourage to use coal, switching from coal to oil.
Right.
So they reduce environmental,
CO2.
Yeah, CO2. Yeah. This is but how they did that? They changed the coal to oil. Gas or natural gas.
Right.
I don't know how to do that. It's very they spend lots of money. Right?
Yeah, China is spending a lot of money. Well, they have a lot of money, so that's the good news for China. They have a lot of money, and they can make a decision and immediately execute. They don't have to go through all these impractical things that happen when you are in a democratic system. Where you can create legislation and it's being reversed and going back and forth. China has the advantage that they don't have to do that.
Actually, most just reluctant to adopting kind of environmental issue is the United States.
Right.
They don't do nothing around.
Right.
Right.
Right. The United States is really lagging behind. Germany is Germany. Europe is very serious. Also, Denmark is a leader. When it comes to renewable energies, we are trying to do our best in the Netherlands. China is very serious about introducing these
because polluted.
It's polluted. They have an immediate need to do something about this.
Yeah, you can't live there. So heavy polluted.
And also they missed out on the first and second industrial revolution almost entirely. The first, they were a relative economic superpower worldwide. Then they missed the first industrial revolution, and only came in at the end of the second industrial revolution. Therefore, China will have learned its lesson probably, and these kinds of new developments and will be on everybody's radar, not to miss out again.
So, here's a question.
Hi.
What is the motivation or the pressure on the Germany as they can have that resolute action? Whereas is understandable the Chinese situation is where they're leaving behind on traditional energy system.
Right.
So instead of catching up traditional system is better for them, much better for them to look for the next generation of the energy.
Right.
The Germany is living up enough on the traditional current supply of the traditional energy. So what is their motivation to take this action?
For Germany, well, there is, first of all, Germany is very highly dependent on Russia for their oil imports. That is not a good situation for them. They don't want to be dependent on Russia. On top of that, they are also relying quite heavily on nuclear power. And there is a very big awareness of the risks of nuclear power. We had the what was the name of the nuclear power plant in Ukraine? What was the name of the power plant? There was a nuclear power plant that exploded. Chernobyl. Exactly, Chernobyl. When Chernobyl exploded in Germany, that led to heavy protests and a lot of awareness and protest against nuclear power and the dangers of it for Germany. So that's when, politically speaking, the Grünen, the Green Party, became a very big factor, and they have been member of the ruling coalition almost without interruption since the 1980s. So they have a strong political voice, and they put this issue on the agenda. Germany is above average. The German citizen is above average concerned and engaged with these kind of environmental issues, and that has led for Germany to actually adopt these policies. I mean, if you want to, even though you're not the majority, but if the majority needs support from minority parties like the Green Party, and for the Green Party for them to make it worthwhile, because actually the way that it works in Western democracies is that these minority parties, once they become part of the ruling coalition, it's usually not good for their popularity, because when they're in the opposition, they can, almost without an exception, they can count on more votes in the next election. But there comes a time where you want to cash in on your votes, and then you become part of the coalition because you want the power to change things. Now, the biggest parties know that they need to give in. They need to put some of the policies of these coalition partners on the political agenda. Otherwise, they will no longer participate. Now, the Green Party has been very successful in putting the environmental issues on the political agenda in Germany, and that's why already in the 1980s, when after Chernobyl happened, it became a very big political movement, and that's why Germany has already started to implement these things. It was not because Mr. Rifkin visited there; it was already happening way before Mr. Rifkin even was thinking about these things, probably.
Okay, so the agenda is only for being sustainable of the keeping energy resources, and also in terms of the diplomacy, they shouldn't be too much reliant on the outside, or expandably they are the thinking some potential the chance to export, to make it industry to be exported.
I think I would say both. One of the reasons why this is happening is of course the dependency upon energy, but it's also because of the political movement and the opportunity that comes with it. So it's starting to and I think it's also like a long-term vision. Germany is a wealthy country. They have lots of money. They are strong, and countries like Germany, they're not cost leaders, so they need to be innovative. And Germany has the industrial power to be a leading nation, but they have to be smarter. They're very much aware of that. And through policies like this, they create awareness, they create collaboration on a higher level. And I think what they're doing is very, very smart, and it makes sense, especially for a country like Germany.
So, the last week we find the automobile company, manufacturing company, is shifting the business model from just selling the car to providing the service,
right?
Logistics service,
right?
And on which the business should be like providing the platform to support the services, to sell the logistics service,
right?
Not rely on the energy resources, fossil fuel.
Right. But because of this awareness, we can already see that the new platform is not there yet, but we can already see that big industries are starting to anticipate on these kinds of developments, and they're providing services for the future, because they are thinking, all right, so if studies show that we can actually live with 20%, we can reduce the total number of cars with 80%. So what does that mean for our future? How are we going to make money? How are we going to stay relevant in this field?
Mm-hmm.
And so they came up with the answers. Now it's not only there was this example with Daimler-Benz, but there is another example where E.ON, the energy, one of the four energy giants, they are investing very heavily in powering this renewable energy grid to make sure that you can completely control the energy grid and exchange energy freely, making it possible to settle accounts, to demand extra energy, to supply excess energy onto the grid. So they will become not an energy producer, but they will become a manager, or basically they the suppliers of management technology and value added services for people to actually do this locally in a distributed network. So that is smart. That is looking at the future. One of the things to keep in mind here is that Germany is doing that, and they are not and they are also trying to sell this and trying to invite technology partners to drive this. So they have made themselves a test market, which is very attractive, and so they're trying to create all kinds of spin-off businesses from this already, which also shows how important it will be. More and more important will be that you are able to collaborate on a global scale. And this is also looking at Japan, how important it will be that we will be able to use open standards, create open standards, to actively engage, look at the future. Japan has the money to weather out a lot of crises, but we have to get serious about this very, very fast. We can say, oh, well, the electrical vehicle, this and that and the other, but if we see where Daimler is already at, that is frightening.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to ask you. The same can be true on the Japanese situation. We had the nuclear plant incident,
Right.
But the discussion is looking like whether or not the nuclear plant that can be going on,
Right.
or not.
Right.
But taking this idea on our case, so discussion that could be the different, like, okay, nuclear plant, maybe good, well, not good, but instead is renewable, the shifting more to renewable energy. Then also what we need to do on this concept is to make this platform to supply or decentralized network.
Exactly.
Then on top of that, as Germany car manufacturing can do, we can also think of the new type of the industry, the way that the manufacturer can shift a bit the business from manufacturing to service.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if Germany can do it, so they get, for example, their wind energy is coming. Everything is coming from the north, because in the north Germany has a very small coastline, actually. Only in the north, Hamburg, Bremen, in that area, they have the capacity to effectively use wind energy. Now, Japan is surrounded by ocean, so they have a huge potential for wind energy. But it's not happening.
Really?
So I don't know, maybe
well, a little bit, but not to the scale that I see in Europe. Not even close.
Yeah, I just guess it maybe because I don't know. The discussion like this has been going on behind the scene because it might be so strategic as it shouldn't be open at this moment. But I don't know. To me, it's not happen in Japan.
No, I don't think so. I think Japan has made a commitment to nuclear power, and not yet for renewable energy. I don't see.
But I never hear about Japan has lots of opportunity for wind rather than China. China, they have a lot of place for strong wind area, but in Japan we don't have many.
Really?
Yeah. And also solar panel, we don't have so much opportunity.
No, we don't have so many.
Compared with Middle East and North Africa.
Well, Japan has a lot of sun.
No.
More than the Netherlands, for sure.
No.
And we have lots of houses, private houses with solar panels.
Not much efficiency. Japan is not like Africa, not like Middle East, or not like South Asia. No. So wind and solar.
But that's impossible, Uno-san. Like there's so much ocean, there is so much potential for wind energy.
But I've never heard about that.
Oh, we do it in Denmark. Like there's huge stretches of ocean where we have.
I agree
wind
with you.
turbine.
Europe is not sunshine country instead of Southern Europe, but I agree with that. But Japan is the same.
So I think there should be a potential for wind energy in Japan.
Really, I've never heard about that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, there's other, like, I don't know how efficient it is, but you can use the tidal energy, tidal energy to
What is
tides, like the ebb and flood. So the tides.
Tide.
Tidal energy.
Tide is you mean
The water coming in, the water level rising and sinking. There's basically water flowing in and water flowing out. There is a potential for
I heard that
to generate energy.
I agree with that. Okay, let's move.
Okay. Switch this off. Switch this off. Where is it? My mailbox is open on your computer. YouTube. Where did I leave it? Is this it?
No, this one.
Ah, here we go. Okay. So we can see that Germany is already very much aware of this third industrial revolution and is taking the lead globally, not only to develop this infrastructure and remain relevant and economically competitive in the future, but also immediately in the transition process by creating connections globally, by making investments for the future. They can actually already get some benefits from in the whole transition process. Okay, moving on. Communication, energy, and transportation network, IoT.
The communication internet is now mature. It's been 25 years since the World Wide Web. We have digitalized communication. Now this communication internet is converging with a nascent, digitalized, renewable energy internet. And now both those internets are converging with a fledgling, automated, GPS, and very soon driverless road, rail, water, and air transport internet to create three internets: communication internet, renewable energy internet, automated transportation logistic internet, one super internet to manage, power, and move economic life. These three internets ride on top of a platform called the Internet of Things. We're embedding sensors in all of our devices, as you know, so they can monitor real-time activity and then talk to other machines and talk to us. So we have sensors now in the agricultural fields, and they're actually monitoring the growth of crops, the soil salinity, the moisture in the crops, etc., and they're sending that data. We have sensors now in the factories that are monitoring our economic data. We have sensors in smart homes, monitoring how the energy is used in our buildings. We have sensors in smart vehicles, warehouses, smart roads, all of them collecting data. But where does that big data go? It goes to communication, energy, and transport internets to manage power and move economic life. As this new system comes in, it's going to be ubiquitous by 2030, connecting everything with everyone. We are essentially creating an external prothesis, a distributed nervous system, that's going to allow everyone on this planet at very low cost to begin directly engaging each other on a global Internet of Things and bypassing a lot of the vertical integrated organization and middlemen that kept us away from each other. We can have direct engagement now. This is the revolution. This evens the playing field. There's been a long discussion among the millennials who started this Occupy movement, saying, what about the 1%, the 99%?
Next topic. Okay, IoT. Basically, the communication infrastructure, internet, is now becoming also a physical infrastructure for to power. So there's a connection between the energy grid with the internet and the transportation network, as we saw last week in the movie when we were looking at Daimler-Benz.
He's told the three internet.
The three internets. So
It's the first time I've heard about this.
So communication internet, communication to power, energy internet, and the third is to move. It's a logistics internet.
Second, what is this? This transmit.
So, but that's the grid that we were talking about. The smart grid.
Oh, smart grid.
Smart grid, where we're not just creating a network of an electricity network, for example, or an energy network with energy pipes, but we are actually are able to directly engage with that. So it's not only providing information anymore. We can actually start to directly control the flows of energy, and we can control the way that we are moving things from A to B. So everything becomes part of this single internet, where we're no longer only doing information exchange.
I don't understand what does the internet mean. Electricity.
Internet. So the smart grid is the electricity.
Electricity control using information, right? Okay.
Yes. So we use internet technology to actually control the energy network.
I understand.
Mm-hmm. Why is it going? Okay, so here's a video. So actually, I have a little video on the IoT and the energy grid.
The Internet of Things is changing much about the world we live in, from the way we drive to how we make purchases, and even how we get energy for our homes. Sophisticated sensors and chips are embedded in the physical things that surround us, each transmitting valuable data that lets us better understand how these things work and work together. But how exactly do all these devices share such large quantities of data, and how do we put that information to work? Whether we're improving the production of a factory, giving city residents real-time updates on where to park, or monitoring our personal health, it's the common Internet of Things platform that brings this diverse information together and provides the common language for the devices and apps to communicate with each other. The process starts with the devices themselves, which securely communicate with an Internet of Things platform. This platform integrates the data from many devices and applies analytics to share the most valuable data with applications that address industry-specific needs. Let's start with a simple example, a car. After taking a long road trip, Rebecca notices that her check engine light has come on. She knows that she needs to have her car looked at by a mechanic, but is not sure whether it's something minor or something that needs immediate attention. As it turns out, the sensor that triggered Rebecca's check engine light monitors the pressure in her brake line. This sensor is one of many monitoring processes throughout the car, which are constantly communicating with each other. A component in the car called the diagnostic bus gathers the data from all these sensors, then passes it to a gateway in the car. The gateway integrates and sorts the data from the sensors. This way, only the most relevant diagnostic information will be transmitted to the manufacturer's platform. But before sending this organized data, the car's gateway and platform must first register with each other and confirm a secure communication. The platform is constantly gathering and storing thousands of bits of information from Rebecca's car and hundreds of thousands of cars like hers, building an historical record in a secure database. The manufacturer has added rules and logic to the platform. So when Rebecca's car sends a signal that her brake fluid has dropped below a recommended level, the platform triggers an alert in her car. The manufacturer also uses the platform to create and manage applications that solve specific issues. In this case, the manufacturer can deploy an application on the platform called the Asset Management System. This application oversees all of their customers' cars on the road, as well as all the parts in their warehouses. It uses the data from Rebecca's car to offer her a potential appointment time to service her car, directions to the nearest certified dealer, and a coupon for the service. What's more, the app will ensure that Rebecca's brakes are covered under her warranty, that the correct replacement part is ordered, and then sent to the dealership so it is ready when she arrives. But the manufacturer's analysis does not stop there. They have also deployed a continuous engineering application that tracks not only Rebecca's car, but hundreds of thousands of others, looking for ways to improve the design and manufacturing process of the car itself. If the same problem in her brake line crops up in a critical number of other cars, the manufacturer uses applications custom-built for the automobile industry to pinpoint the exact problem. They can see if these cars were made at the same factory, used the same parts, or came off the assembly line on the same day. So what do all these pieces add up to? Streamlined inventory management for the dealer, a better, safer car from the manufacturer. And for Rebecca, it means she can be back on the road faster and get to where she's going safely. All thanks to the Internet of Things.
So that's an example of what it means, what it does. sensors, data management, the capacity to analyze data locally, like in a car, to have a local management system that with certain trigger, certain kinds of information they trigger, they surpass a critical level, then being sent to the manufacturer. The manufacturer, who has a direct integration with its dealer network, with warehouses, can make appointments with dealers because they have access to the calendar, the schedules of these dealerships. It all becomes integrated and much smarter with the IoT, with the Internet of Things, because we can automate so many more things.
I thought this is one of the smart city.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So these kinds of technologies, these kinds of possibilities become a reality with the Internet of Things. So that will have huge potential, not only for the car industry, but for so many other things, where we can make things much smarter and do much more with much less energy.
But it's that data from the many IoT equipment.
Right.
Who manages that big data? Government sector, enterprise.
Right. So
that's important.
That's very important. So that we'll come to that. Who manages that data? Facebook manages some of it. Can we control everything?
Direct money is that type was as a big data.
Right. Of course they do.
Yeah.
How does Google make money? How does Facebook make money? Advertisements. Yeah. And they are attractive because they know so much about us. The more they know, the better they can sell their platform for advertisement. Therefore, I mean, if I would produce cars, I would be very interested to have this kind of IoT data, to know which people have actually spent a lot of money in repairs.
Germany government thinks how to do it.
I'm not sure how Germany is going to solve
Maybe
it.
direct money is that type of the data under the government sector.
Well, there are a lot of threats here.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of threats about security, these kinds of things. How are you going to? It's the potential is enormous, but how are you going to protect this from being hacked, for example?
I suppose the European people who direct money is that type of the big data under the government sector. But United States thinks who direct money is private company.
Private hands. Right. Right.
Japanese government will do how to do.
Right.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands, we had a last weekend. There was a kind of popular television show. It's kind of a kind of comedy, half serious, half comedy.
Comedy. Yeah.
They were making the host of that show was making an appeal to close your Facebook account.
Oh, Facebook account.
Because of in light of recent things.
Yeah.
And actually 10,000 people followed. They closed their Facebook account.
No.
Because they don't have any trust that their data is safe.
Yeah.
With the likes of Facebook, Google, and what have you. It's going to be a concern. It's actually this is one of the biggest challenges, because with this things become very, very tricky. Auto lock systems.
Yeah.
If you hack them, you can get into any house without any problem. And hacking is not that hard. It's not that hard.
I think the China government would direct money that data under the.
Absolutely. I think China will introduce their own lock system. They can open any door. Well, I agree. I don't have the answer for it because I think this is actually one of the major problems with this IoT. I will show a little video later about the risks of IoT.
Yeah.
Economists are talking about this IoT threat for the authoritarian regime.
Authoritarian.
They can manage information. So
Right, that net neutrality. That's we're also going to look at that.
like Japanese government, they try to establish law for the kind of information control sort of things.
Right.
This means try to manage people's movement. Right?
Yeah, but everything becomes very like if you in that program, I watched it where they make this appeal to stop Facebook. But if you see how much information they have, it's really scary. It's really scary, and how they mine everything. I thought that basically I would be more or less safe and secure if I just wouldn't add all my private data on it, but there are so many other ways that they are capable of tracking all these things, and not only what you do on Facebook, but all kinds of other stuff. They found that actually people who use Facebook on their phones, actually all their regular telephone data can be monitored. It's scary. It's very scary. So 1984 is happening, but it's not the state. It's Facebook and it's Google.
Edo-san, for example, military equipments
Right.
should use that big data.
Well, I mean, there are things to say for that, but they're also becoming more and more vulnerable. The military was the inventor of internet.
Maybe military use another management system.
Right. So there are ways where you can privatize part of the internet. I'm sure that the internet that the military will use a kind of like encoded, but there are a lot of security concerns regarding using open networks. The advantages are very obvious.
Maybe North Korea will attack these big data systems.
Right. But if you have access to it, if you know exactly where a truck, if you, for example, North Korea, let's say that they are also implementing IoT, that would mean that if you have access to that data, you know exactly where trucks are moving, and if you want to do a preemptive strike, it would be very easy to pinpoint exactly. Okay, let's go there and just send a drone there and boom.
Drone.
There you go. Or it becomes very simple. So the military, I think they will definitely use it, but they will also be very concerned because they know the power that the enemy will get if they take control over all the data that the military uses for their operations. Will be.
So China will go into any supermarket. Will going to be normal management, and then the government can control the people. Try to get in store. They can recognize he has experience for shoplifting, so he cannot to get in. So government can control the human history to prohibit for the crime or criminal activity. This kind we have. Japan is a little bit difficult to refer to personal information, but China can do that. So it means gradually government will control people.
Right, and like the whole money flow is also being digitalized. Less and less role for cash, so it will be much easier to track and trace where money is flowing, and if you can do that, you can see, okay, this person is spending about this amount per month, but according to his tax returns, he only makes this much money. How come that this discrepancy? It's time for the IRS to have a look there. So yeah, it will give us a lot of control. So the opportunities for that are good, but how are we going to manage? That's another question. You don't have an escape button? Oh, this is the escape button.
Yeah.
Why is that? Interesting.
What do you want to do?
Well, I'm looking at this.
Huh?
Well, this is very interesting. They put this. I don't know why they want it, but
I don't know. Maybe bottom. This is a little bit risky to touch it.
okay. All right. So this is IoT, but IoT in the energy grid. Come on.
Today's central station controlled power grids operate on update cycles that are as long as 15 minutes.
You touch something, right?
I don't know. Did it?
You touch this there?
Right.
Oh, no, good, no. You shouldn't do that. I told you.
What did I do?
Don't touch it. I don't know.
Oh my God. Oh. Oh.
You touch different.
This is very interesting. See what happened?
I don't know. Escape again. Back again.
Oh my goodness. What did I do? Your screen has reduced this size. Oh, wait.
Oh,
Whoa.
come back.
This is old one. So you're going to need. Oh, this is a new one.
Right.
This end.
Ah, this. Okay.
Okay.
Why does it not come?
Today's central station controlled power grids operate on update cycles that are as long as 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, the central station estimates the power and adjusts its generators to meet the load. Unlike traditional sources of energy,
Sorry, Takai-san.
renewable power sources such as solar panels or wind turbines
can't
don't
control
have
it.
a predictable output over the same time range.
Can't control it.
Fast loads, like plugging in your electric car, are also hard to predict. If the grid drops below the needed power, it can fail. So, to ensure sufficient power, grid operators maintain extra power plant reserves to compensate for these fluctuations.
Why move?
That keeps the lights on, but it waits.
Why voice is moving? And
I don't know.
Not screen.
I don't know. Okay, one more time. I'll do it like this. Not full screen anymore.
Today's central station controlled power grids operate on update cycles that are as long as 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, the central station estimates the power and adjusts its generators to meet the load. Unlike traditional sources of energy, renewable power sources such as solar panels or wind turbines don't have a predictable output over the same time range. Fast loads, like plugging in your electric car, are also hard to predict. If the grid drops below the needed power, it can fail. So, to ensure sufficient power, grid operators maintain extra power plant reserves to compensate for these fluctuations. That keeps the lights on, but it wastes fossil fuels. It means the renewables are not lowering the carbon footprint as much as they should. To deliver on the promise of renewable energy, the Industrial Internet Consortium, IIC, started a new initiative named the Communication and Control Testbed for Microgrid Applications to enable the efficient use of renewable energy resources at a large scale. This is an ambitious goal, but when the expertise and the technology come together, the dream can become a reality. The Industrial Internet of Things provides a disruptive technology that will change the way the grid operates. 3 members of the IIC are lending their expertise to the Microgrid Communication and Control Testbed project. RTI is providing the real-time data bus software. National Instruments is providing the intelligent nodes for edge control and analytics. Cisco is providing network equipment and security expertise. The Open FMB project at the Smart Grid Interoperability Panel is defining communications data model and services standards. Duke Energy, Southern California Edison, and CPS Energy will take the architecture through performance and security testing to prepare it for real-world challenges. The goal of the new initiative is to prove the viability of real-time communications and control framework which combines distributed, edge-located processing and control applications with intelligent analytics. A real-time secure connectivity framework enables machine-to-machine, machine-to-control center, and machine-to-cloud data connectivity. The framework will run in real-world power applications and interface with operational equipment. At the core of the new smart microgrid critical infrastructure is a high-speed field data bus that connects devices and intelligent nodes. The data bus also interacts with the central station and the cloud, taking advantage of both local and remote state to optimize operations. The data bus streamlines the delivery of real-time data to analytics to any node on the network, edge or cloud. It is based on the Data Distribution Service Protocol, DDS, the first open international middleware standard for industrial internet systems. Unlike other connectivity protocols, DDS is data-centric. Imagine a database in motion, zooming at extremely high speed and securely sharing massive amounts of data across any number of highly distributed and heterogeneous systems. The data bus leverages the industry-leading unique publish-subscribe peer-to-peer connectivity platform, RTI Connect DDS. It operates without a centralized message broker with high efficiency. It ensures data gets to where it needs to be, on time, making the smart grid infrastructure interoperable, resilient, scalable, and secure. RTI invites you to learn how to apply this architecture to your industrial internet and smart grid systems. Watch our webinar now.
Well, we'll not do that. But basically, the problem here is that when energy is centralized, we are much more capable of assessing, okay, well, when do we need peak loads, when do we have downtime? Because basically this usage is averaging out. What you see is that if you supply with a lot of consumers, you know that around 5 o'clock in the evening that this town will consume on the average this much of energy. Now you add, for example, weather influences, you add maybe holidays, and you add this, and you know with probably 99% certainty how much energy you need. So you basically preemptively start to increase the power output. Now, if you want to replace that system and you want to be able to actually let smaller suppliers enter this game, you need to be able to be much more flexible and really need to go know what's going on, because small suppliers means that they will be much more vulnerable for high demand at any given point in time. So the way that you're going to make sure that that you don't get problems in your grid is that you need to be much more flexible. Data needs to flow much faster, and analytics need to come in, and then you need to put intelligence into the network that with excess demand you will be able to retrieve energy from other sources, not by the traditional vertically integrated energy provider, because that's what you want to move away from, because that's the solution right now. But actually be able to retrieve energy from other renewable sources. So we need IoT. We need very quick data processing, fast analytics, and a very flexible way of retrieving this kind of data. Now we see that this initiative is already a lot of players are already engaging in these kinds of initiatives to make this happen. That means that it's probably going to be very much open, but it's again it's not a platform where I see any Japanese providers playing any major role as of now. I don't know. Perhaps they are doing it, but not overseas. Not overseas. So I foresee here also that this is dangerous, that we're not there at the moment. So I think that Japanese technology should be capable of playing a major role and contribution in these kinds of networks. And if you're not there right now, then you might miss out, and you need to follow whatever is happening. And other players have already stepped in. So this is a matter of concern. I believe that we are not there. All right, moving on after IoT. So we have this network, right? So that has a lot of potential to communicate, to drive, and to power the economy. But there are also risks.
This evens the playing field. There's been a long discussion among the millennials who started this Occupy movement, saying, what about the 1%, the 99%? Now we have a new platform. The Internet of Things platform is of a different nature than the platforms in the first and second industrial revolution. The new platform is really radical, because this third industrial revolution platform is designed to be distributed, not centralized. It works best when it's collaborative and open and transparent rather than closed and proprietary. And the benefits come when more and more people join the network, and each of us contributes our talents, which benefits the network and then benefits us. It's designed to be laterally scaled, not vertically integrated. And this is what moves us from the 1% and the 99% to a vast, vast expansion of social entrepreneurialism in global networks. That's the upside. On the other hand, how do we deal with network neutrality? How do we ensure that everyone has equal access to this new Internet of Things platform, this third industrial revolution? How do we make sure governments don't purloin this platform for political purposes, already beginning? How do we make sure that giant monopoly companies, some of them on the internet, don't use that data for their own commercial purposes at our expense? How do we ensure privacy when everyone's connected? How do we ensure data security when everyone's connected? How do we prevent cybercrime and cyber terrorism that could disrupt the system and take it down when everyone's connected? This is the dark net. And what I'm saying to you today is that the dark net is as impressive as the opportunity of the bright net. And I would say that the next 3 generations, beginning with you and your children and grandchildren, you're going to be heavily engaged in a new political movement. And that movement's going to be to ensure against the dark net prevailing and making sure that we all have equal access so the human family can engage in a distributed nervous system and begin to have a vast expansion of social entrepreneurialism. This is the political struggle that starts with the millennials, your children and grandchildren. This is an uphill battle. This is not a cakewalk. I'm not a technological determinist, and I'm not a utopian. Technology just enables, and then the question is, how will that journey end? It's a big question mark right now. But let's assume, for the sake of this afternoon, that we're going to be able to deal with all the
He doesn't answer the question. And I'm not sure whether the answer is already there. But I would like to drill in a little bit deeper on the risks that we have depending on an IoT, on this common infrastructure.
Does this bother you? What if you had to pay to make it go away? We often assume that all the information on the internet is equally accessible. It's not quite as simple as that, but this ideal is the basis of net neutrality. It's an issue that's been on the agenda in the US for years, but it actually affects people all over the world. Here's the problem. Without net neutrality, your internet service provider, or ISP, such as BT or Comcast, could influence what you see and how quickly you see it. In order for you to watch YouTube, browse Facebook, or read the news, you need an ISP to connect you to that content. Net neutrality demands that ISPs should treat all web traffic the same. Let's think about that in terms of real traffic. The ISPs are like the road between Tech City, where companies like Amazon and Google are based, and Consumerville, where you live. These companies have to send information along the road, which is owned by the ISP. Currently, vehicles from Google and vehicles from a small company travel on the same road at the same speed. The ISP cannot favor one over the other, so the Google van cannot overtake its competitor's little car. But imagine the road is converted into a highway with a fast and slow lane. To access the fast lane, companies have to pay the ISP more money. This favors big companies who can afford to pay. Some companies might even be denied access to the road altogether. It would be the ISP's choice. Without net neutrality, the ISP highway has stopped treating all traffic the same. What does this mean for you? Well, without net neutrality, you might find some services slowed down unless your favorite sites pay the ISPs. This has happened before. In 2014, before net neutrality regulations were enshrined in law in the US, Comcast customers noticed Netflix streaming speeds plummeting. It wasn't until Netflix agreed to pay Comcast more money that streaming speeds shot up again. It could also lead to higher prices for you. ISPs could charge premium prices for people who want to watch a video or listen to music at peak times. And if companies are forced to pay for the fast lane, the price increase might be pushed back onto the consumer. That means you could end up paying more to browse your favorite sites. You might even notice a decrease in the quality of content. While larger companies can afford to pay up for better service delivery, smaller companies may not be able to keep up. Less competition means less pressure to improve products and services, and if smaller companies fold, the consumer will have less choice. ISPs could choose to slow down content of any kind. Let's take the business of streaming video. If Netflix makes an arrangement with an ISP, the ISP could block Netflix's competitors from reaching customers. Many ISPs have started their own streaming services. They could favor their own content and block competitors out completely. And it's not just about business. They could also censor content that they disagree with. ISPs argue that if there was less regulation and they were able to charge a premium for faster service, they could reinvest the money in better infrastructure. This could include improved access for people in remote and rural areas. If popular services like YouTube are putting more strain on the ISP's network, it makes sense for them to pay more anyway. Right? But YouTube would say it's not their job to improve the internet, just as it's not BMW's job to build better roads. What's more, many argue that any extra money paid to ISPs would really just go into the pockets of shareholders. One thing's certain, net neutrality creates a level playing field which spurs innovation. Small companies can easily challenge competitors, which motivates them both to improve their products. Small startups have a fighting chance to grow and even surpass their big rivals. That's how Facebook rose from humble origins in Mark Zuckerberg's university dorm room to domination over market leader MySpace. ISPs also argue that any consumers who don't like the way they operate can always choose to switch providers. But it's not that simple. Many people only have access to adequate broadband from one internet provider in their area. Without net neutrality, that one ISP could have a lot of control over what those consumers get to see online. So what do you think? Should net neutrality rules be protected, loosened a little, or even scrapped altogether?
What she wanted to say.
What you want? This is an explanation about what is net neutrality and why does it matter. Basically, internet has become it's almost like a public service. Net neutrality must guarantee that it's equally accessible by anyone, and that no traffic on that network is controlled or tampered with for economic gain. So if we can maintain net neutrality, we can make sure that everybody has equal access. But if we start to allow people who own part of that infrastructure to tamper with it, then it might be possible that some content might not be available to us anymore. That some internet service provider will not allow us to see YouTube anymore because basically YouTube is taking up too much of their bandwidth. They need to invest more money in order to cater for so many people wanting to watch YouTube movies at the same time without paying anything more. So basically, net neutrality is what should guarantee countries like China not to block certain content and not to block access to Google, not to block access to Facebook. Why? Basically, because we don't want our government or private enterprises to tamper with the access to certain kinds of content. You could say, okay, well then just change your ISP, but that is not what the internet is supposed to be about. It should be access to everyone. Now with IoT that becomes even more important, because an ISP, the owner of part of the internet infrastructure, should theoretically be capable of actually blocking off even access to the energy grid or to other applications. So net neutrality must make sure that we have access and that we have performance. But
China case is different reason, right?
China case is not a different reason.
But China has the same function of Facebook or YouTube.
Right, but it doesn't give access to Google.
No.
So that basically China is tampering with what their citizens can and cannot see.
This is because of they prohibit Google because of what's the reason of they prohibit Google?
Well, I think one of the reasons that Google has been critical about the Chinese government. Another reason, and I think a maybe even more important reason, is that they want to grow their own industry. So they are creating
protection, right?
Yeah, they are actually creating a market for Chinese players to develop themselves. Alibaba maybe could not have become so big if they wouldn't have been protected from the likes of eBay to actually set foot on Chinese soil. So they are outright protecting their domestic market. From
I understand, but what is this message?
The message here is that without net neutrality, it will be possible for people who own the infrastructure to tamper with what we can and cannot see and at which speeds. Net neutrality will be important because internet access to basically anything needs to be guaranteed. If we cannot guarantee net neutrality, then it's a very big risk in the future for the value of our network. The value of a network is basically to provide access, to provide possibilities. But at the same time, it needs to be paid for.
But I'm curious, how come there's so many providers in the market?
How come?
Yeah. Like, for example, San Francisco, they consider for the whole San Francisco going to be free Wi-Fi, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah. But why are there going to many Wi-Fi companies here?
So why well, there are not that many in Japan, for example. There's only 3 big players, I think. How many?
No, provider, right? Provider is just
NTT.
No. Is it NTT?
KDDI.
Okay.
KDDI, SoftBank, and NTT. They are the main ISPs, and then there are other ISPs, but they are basically just piggybacking of the infrastructure that is owned by NTT, KDDI, and SoftBank. And now Rakuten is becoming a provider. They have been awarded infrastructure, but what if you live, for example, if you live in Iwate and you only have access to one provider because there's no coverage by any other provider, so there is no possibility. So you're completely dependent on that. So for your internet access, you need to depend on NTT. Now, what if NTT would decide not to provide you with Google anymore? Well, that's a serious limitation.
that slide shows Facebook won. Why Facebook won? What this C means?
Facebook won.
Facebook is bigger guys win.
So basically, with net neutrality, it's possible that smaller players can come up like that and leverage the infrastructure because it's open, because it's accessible to anyone. So Mark Zuckerberg from his dorm room could create Facebook and actually challenge an established platform like MySpace with almost zero means, just leveraging an infrastructure that he didn't pay for, almost zero marginal cost. He was capable of creating a competitor to MySpace, and now has a company that is worth almost $70 billion. So that is something that net neutrality guarantees. So if you had basically, you cannot prefer or unprefer certain providers. So Netflix was an example. Netflix basically used the fact that there is net neutrality and start to stream a streaming video service. It's not so expensive because they didn't have to pay for the bandwidth that the service providers are creating. But if a lot of people start to use Netflix, that will put a big strain on their infrastructure. So that will force ISPs to invest even more in their physical infrastructure. So that will basically drives up the costs, and Netflix is not going to pay for it. That's the other side. That's the reverse side of the medal. So they could say, well, sorry, everybody who wants to see all traffic from Netflix. Without net neutrality, they can say all traffic from Netflix, people who want to see that, we will put a brake on it. We will make sure that we will we will not allow for more than this amount of bandwidth that we allocate for Netflix users, and that could lead to a serious decrease in performance of the content served by Netflix. What if an ISP like Docomo starts to their own Netflix service? They can say, well,
currently net speed is the same for every provider.
Right. No, what I said, not for every provider, but for every user on that network, it's the same.
But
so it doesn't matter. They cannot discriminate between, for example, we give more bandwidth to Google than we give to Facebook and or Yahoo, for example. They cannot do that.
Like I switching contract for the internet, provider.
Right.
From the different company because of the former company so slow.
Right.
How come so slow?
Well, that has to do sometimes with very simple economics, where the provider is basically a reseller. So if it's not directly NTT, but I don't know, company Y Mobile or whatever.
My condominium, 34th floor, some Wi-Fi provider, they don't have antenna.
Right.
Right?
That's possible.
Large company can deliver the waves to 34th floor.
Right. But also these companies, they are sometimes they're buying bandwidth, right? So they just buy a pipe to the internet, and if that bandwidth is not sufficient for the number of customers they get, then basically it becomes congested. And if there is a physical limitation on the pipe, you cannot. If it would be oil, for example, you cannot go beyond the maximum capacity of the diameter of the oil pipeline. That's basically the maximum that can go through. So if that starts to increase, then you reach the physical limitations of the speed.
That's the reason why at night speed is getting so slow.
Yeah, and it's a problem that's actually coming up. It will become a very big problem. Like also Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi becomes so prevalent. Everywhere is Wi-Fi, and there are so many devices that are also using Wi-Fi infrastructure Now, what we see is that there is a lot of interference, like a correlation between networks, and data starts to collide, and you have like Wi-Fi blind spots where you cannot actually receive Wi-Fi data. We see this, for example, in our share houses, where 20 people at the same time stay. In principle, they have a good connectivity with the internet, so they have a optic fiber connection. But because of this interference and a lot of people watching movies, etc., at the same time, you see it completely slow down at night. It's a big problem because everybody expects good connectivity.
Why the Wi-Fi does not get free?
Why does it not get free?
Some places in Tokyo are free, right?
Right.
Why they are not free for that?
Well, there's a cost involved, but marginal cost not so much. But the investments that being made in the physical infrastructure need to be paid back. Right? They need to put cables in the ground. They need to put transmitters on roofs and on poles that need to be paid for. The people who install them need to be paid. So this is not free. This is not free, but the marginal costs are close to zero. So it's a very difficult market. I would never, if I have to invest in anything, I would definitely not invest in an ISP. In becoming an ISP, because since marginal costs are close to zero, basically the price will also move towards zero, and it will be very difficult to make back your initial investments.
Okay.
So net neutrality will be one of our challenges. Now the deep web. He was talking about the deep web. What is the deep web?
Talk about
The term darknet was coined in the 70s, and it was meant as a way to describe networks isolated from ARPANET. ARPANET eventually became the commercial internet run by the private telecoms we all use today. ARPA was created by the US Department of Defense, and it was created to share data about their projects and research laboratories with the universities. And for those of you familiar with networking, it was the first packet switching network, which is the foundation to modern networking. Now, we're not talking about the World Wide Web here. That didn't show up until 1990, when Tim Berners-Lee set up the first web server at CERN. The internet is a massive piece of hardware. It enables communication instantly on a global scale. And in fact, there are hundreds of cables spanning the ocean, along with ground to satellite communication and radio to radio communication, just to make this thing work. I like to tell people I circumnavigated the globe once. And I start with that because it sounds a lot cooler than it actually is. What I did was set up a bunch of virtual servers around the world running Netcat, and I cloned the left computer's hard drive to the right computer by streaming the data through the tunnel. And it's so awesome that that works at all, but I feel like people have ruined this for us. They've ruined it with spying and surveillance. And there's a constant need to watch everything we do. So a lot of us are scared to read a certain page on the internet, or maybe download a publication that's a little too leftist or rightist in content. And my hope is darknets help solve this problem. So I'm going to explore and share a couple with you here today. When it comes to darknets, there are a couple different types. Historically, they were meant to be private file sharing networks, but these days they're dynamic pages, rich with media content and pictures and videos, so they're already familiar to us. With darknets, some are peer-to-peer, some are centralized, but most are going for a decentralized model. And we're looking for specific types of philosophy when we consider whether or not our network is a darknet. We're looking for takedown resistance, that is, the government or anyone else for that matter can't just come in, unplug the thing, and watch it disappear. We're looking for anonymity, so nobody knows who's reading, uploading, or creating content, and content richness. Because if there's nothing to see or read, or it all sucks, then really what's the point of even having a darknet? Turns out they're pretty useful, and they've been used for political safe haven, journalism, piracy, dark or black markets, but most importantly, at least to me, privacy. You've all heard of the Silk Road, I'm sure. Well, the Silk Road was running on a network known as Tor. Tor is a node-based decentralized anonymity network. It was initially researched by the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory and has been since handed over to a 501c3 known as the Tor Project. Around 80% of their budget still comes from the U.S. government, and the rest of it from private donors and even other governments. Tor made its way into the public's hands because that's the only way it could work. It would be completely pointless if every request the Navy wanted to make anonymously came from a Navy-controlled network. So I like to think that they created a Kansas City shuffle, where they just dropped this thing into the public's hands and everybody went buck wild with it. So while everybody's looking left at headlines about the Silk Road and drugs and guns and all the bad stuff, the Navy's going right and blowing shit up. Tor works by having relay and exit nodes. A node is just a computer running Tor software, and a relay node takes a request, peels off a layer of encryption, and hands it off to the next node in the route, still encrypted. An exit node takes a now unencrypted request when it reaches through the end of the route, and makes the call to google.com or whatever you're trying to access, and the response comes back, and everything happens in reverse until the content is displayed in the Tor browser.
Right. So this is one way to anonymize yourself, to maintain an anonymous anonymity on the internet. So this is not really a dark web application, but this addresses part of the privacy issues that you. When we were talking about the dark web, we were talking about a decentralized system, not controlled by a single unit. So it's usually peer-to-peer, with people becoming part of the network, just like Napster basically was. It's anonymous, and it has some kind of content. So if I want to Google something, and I don't want people to know that I was Googling this kind of content, I don't know what I would be Googling for, but let's say child pornography or something, then I don't want people to know that and trace that back to me. So I can use the Tor network. Basically what it does is that my request goes to a different computer. I don't know which computer it is, and that pushes forward to another computer and creates an untraceable route to basically make it impossible for people to see that I was actually the one who made that search request. And then it goes the same way back. So that Tor network has become very famous, and it's also used by terrorists and that kind of people. This kind of network is also done for people who want to buy weapons online and child pornography and these kinds of things. So it makes your actions become less traceable on the web.
Tor is cool because It lets you browse the normal internet along with these things called hidden services. Unlike other darknet-like software where you pretty much just have what the network provides to people, what people can upload and whatnot. Hidden services are like normal websites. They're dynamic in nature, but you access them with a .onion address. And the .onion address is like a normal domain, but less memorable because it's a bunch of random characters followed by .onion. So you don't really just say, hey, I'm going to go to xyz409.onion. You're just going to use a search service and find it. So that could be a hurdle to some people. These sites are really the darknet side to Tor and are often referred to as the deep web. So we're going to explore Tor, and here's the first screen you get when you launch the Tor browser. The Tor browser comes in the Tor browser bundle, and it's a nice, neat package. And I love that they did this because nobody's going to use this stuff if it's hard. This is something familiar. This is Firefox, but kind of configured in a way to use Tor. This is the first screen you get. It's green. It says we're connected to the Tor network. And if it was red, you should stop right there because you're not anonymous and you're going to do something stupid. Trust me, you're going to do something stupid. This is an example of me using a service called DuckDuckGo. A lot of you have probably started to hear about this because it's an alternative to Google that's kind of gaining popularity. And I'm searching for Tails, and Tails is a incognito live system, so it runs Tor and it's very relevant here. I'm getting to the download page, and I'm going to download Tails on Tor so nobody knows I'm downloading Tails. Here's an example of the Washington Post Secure Drop. Secure Drops are these things that news organizations are starting to add to their websites that allow people to connect to Tor, go to an onion address, and deliver some papers, maybe some intel to journalists.
There's actually a very good application of this kind of dark web because things will easily be traceable. But if you want to make like anonymous tip, like Deep Throat did with Washington Post during the time of Richard Nixon, Watergate, that basically this enables people to very easily, almost anonymously, give tips to journalists that they can trace.
A .onion search service, you search for a term and you get some results back. So here I searched for black market and I've clicked on a link. I put this in here because this is a good example of things not being taken down on Tor. Yes, the Silk Road got taken down, but it's very rare and it was their own fault. So here you can spend Bitcoin on assault weapons. And here's some of the ways that they conceal it. Here's a social network. It's a really boring social network. Don't get excited. But I put this in here because the registration page is really interesting. It specifically says no child porn, no hate speech, and no commercial activities. And this is a great example of the community that you get on Tor. They want privacy, and there's a lot of trying to keep the thing clean and safe for people to use. Here's an example of me logging in. There's a stream. And I put this in here because this is the first question I get whenever I talk about the deep web to somebody. And they say, can I buy a hitman? And I'm like, I'm showing you this thing that makes you anonymous on the internet and you ask me about a hitman. That's the first thing you ask me. Here's Apex Twins announcing their new album on a hidden service. Here's an example of something you should not be doing on Tor, and that's Facebook, and it's because their terms of service are very anti-pseudonym, so it's just inherently a bad idea. Same with LinkedIn, anti-pseudonym, you are who you legally are, therefore you should not be using an anonymization service. And here's something that's maybe okay, and that's Twitter. I see a lot of people using Twitter anonymously. I haven't read the terms of service, so I'm not sure if that's okay or not. Tor is great. My experience with Tor has been very pleasant. The network is actually pretty fast, contrary to popular belief. And a lot of people use it. Edward Snowden used it to upload documents to journalists about the NSA files. And it was used during the Arab Spring and 2011 Iran protests. I also looked at Freenet. Freenet is a decentralized peer-to-peer file sharing network. It's similar to BitTorrent, but everything's encrypted, so it's really hard to detect Freenet traffic. And you share your hard drive space and some bandwidth with the network, and it basically stores things on your hard drive. They're encrypted, so you're not really held accountable for what you're serving up to the network, and you can be serving some pretty shocking things. They have these things called free sites and flogs. They are static. They're not dynamic, so people have to re-upload the content over and over and over again, so things kind of go out of date. The last flog that I saw updated was like 2011. So we're going to take a look at Freenet. It's here's the first thing you see when you first install it, and I don't like that because it's a setup screen, and nobody likes that. Nobody likes setup screens. Okay. Here's another.
So I think this is basically gives you an idea that these technologies are there in order to create privacy on the network. Now there's things to be said for privacy, but once you can take this down and you reduce the openness of the internet, you're also reducing the possibilities of that internet. So the darknet, as it is, it will allow us to do certain things, like for example, rebel against a leadership who you don't agree with without having to be traced down. Traced back, so like during the Arab Spring, it allowed people to gather on the internet without being traceable. But there's also a big negative side to it if things become inaccessible for people, because the value of the network is as important as the content on it, and if that goes into inaccessible containers, that will basically reduce the value of the network. So in general, these things have applications, but I think we need to think harder about how we can make this work without creating the exclusive networks. So there's still a lot to be done regarding this dark web, and I don't think it's a good development for internet as a whole, especially as we become more and more towards an integrated internet. So that joins the physical world with the information world. If you want to see the rest of the video, the link is in the presentation. Zero marginal costs. Let's go to the idea of zero marginal costs.
Is that video finished?
It's not completely finished. But it doesn't give so much new. It just wanted to show you a few things of what the dark.
By the way, I was so. By the way, what does it mean?
Private networks on the internet. Certain parts of the internet which are private? Not generally
What do you mean private?
Private, parts of the internet that are inaccessible, that are
is this
peer-to-peer. Yeah, this is capable.
How do they handle private internet?
Oh wait, sorry, I forgot something. How they're going to handle it?
I'm preparing two homepage. One is easy to access, very short HTTP title,
Right.
but the other one is very long, so usually they cannot access it. So this is my private internet. But how they want to?
That's not really private. That's not really what we're talking about in terms of privacy.
How they're going to establish a private network?
Private network is by hiding your identity, hiding where your location, creating specific authentications, going peer-to-peer instead of like a World Wide Web. So it's only one-on-one communication is possible.
How do they go? How can they do that?
Using specific technology like Tor technology.
Tor technology.
Yeah, yeah.
This is there. A lot of company using it.
It is quite widely used, but especially used by people who have something to hide because they live in countries where they don't.
Wrong purpose?
Well, for wrong purpose as well, because, for example, if I'm looking for...
They are doing it for business?
Yeah. So, for example, I want to buy... I'm interested in organizing drugs trafficking between Colombia and Amsterdam.
No, my question is not normal business?
Well, normal business is possible, but I would say that if it's normal business...
But for example, just only open for the members only.
Well, that's basically just like, in that case, we are talking more about like intranet kind of solutions.
Intranet kind of solution?
Yeah.
What do you mean intranet?
Yeah, or extranet. Basically, that's more. It's basically you just need to log in to that network to access the information.
But usually, internet everybody can access, like a YouTube.
Well, but not always. Like, for example, I want to log in to the supplier network of NTT Docomo, for example, of NTT, because NTT is my customer. And on their extranet, I can see what kind of products they are looking for, and I can make a bid, for example, on a tender. So on that network, I can read the tender specifications. I'm not anonymous because I had to register for that, and I can put my bid there, and it will make make it easier for NTT to manage all their supplier information and integration without having to go through all the same steps over and over again. So that's also internet, and it's also separate, but that is usually what companies do. They don't use technology like Tor to hide their traces and their location and who they are. That's usually used for people, for example, who want to buy weapons or supply weapons or pornography or what have you.
Okay.
Or people who want to rebel against the government could also be users of that.
Tool is providing some other company providing tool software.
Tor software. Tor was actually developed by the American military.
Is this free to use?
Yes, it's free. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's sponsored. It's actually sponsored by the American government. Still is the main sponsor for this technology.
Mm.
Zero marginal cost. Actually, I don't think we've already hit on that. So let's continue first here.
Now we have a new platform. The Internet of Things platform is of a different nature than the platforms in the first and second industrial revolution. The new platform is really radical because this third industrial revolution platform is designed to be distributed, not centralized. It works best when it's collaborative and open and transparent rather than closed and proprietary.
So that's the reason.
And
so that it's a vertically dispersed network where members collaborate together. So it works best that way. But vertically organized networks like the big verticals, they have the capacity to exclude and include people. But if we have a distributed system, it works. It works best on an open platform. That's why the dark web. That's why it is a threat.
The benefits come when more and more people join the network, and each of us contributes our talents, which benefits the network and then benefits us. It's designed to be laterally scaled, not vertically integrated. And this is what moves us from the 1% and the 99% to a vast, vast expansion of social entrepreneurialism in global networks. That's the upside. On the other hand, how do we deal with network neutrality? How do we ensure that everyone has equal access to this new Internet of Things platform, this third industrial revolution? How do we make sure governments don't purloin this platform for political purposes, already beginning? How do we make sure that giant monopoly companies, some of them on the internet, don't use that data for their own commercial purposes at our expense?
Facebook.
How do we ensure privacy when everyone's connected? How do we ensure data security when everyone's connected? How do we prevent cybercrime and cyber terrorism that could disrupt the system and take it down when everyone's connected? This is the dark net. And what I'm saying to you today is that the dark net is as impressive as the opportunity of the bright net.
Darknet?
No.
And I would say that the next 3 generations, beginning with you and your children and grandchildren, you're going to be heavily engaged in a new political movement. And that movement's going to be to ensure against the dark net prevailing and making sure that we all have equal access so the human family can engage in a distributed nervous system and begin to have a vast expansion of social entrepreneurialism. This is the political struggle that starts with the millennials, your children and grandchildren. This is an uphill battle. This is not a cakewalk. I'm not a technological determinist, and I'm not a utopian. Technology just enables, and then the question is, how will that journey end? It's a big question mark right now. But let's assume, for the sake of this afternoon, that we're going to be able to deal with all the complexities of the dark net, and it's a big challenge. Here's what this Internet of Things platform provides. Let's say here at Brooklyn you're a SME, a small and medium-sized enterprise, or a cooperative, or a nonprofit. You can go up on this nascent Internet of Things platform that's already emerging. It's not theoretical. And you can have a transparent picture of all the economic data flowing through the world if it stays network neutral. The power here is enormous. We think Snowden was a big deal. Now all the economic data is going to be open to everyone, not just a few government secrets. But in a network neutral world, you're going to be able to go up on this platform and have a completely transparent picture of all the data. You can go up on the platform and cut your big data on your value chain out from the noise. Then you can mine your big data with analytics. Then you can create your own algorithms and apps that will allow you to dramatically increase your aggregate efficiency at every step of conversion on your value chain. And as you do that, dramatically increase your productivity, dramatically reduce your ecological footprint, and dramatically plunge your marginal cost. Some of those marginal costs are going to get so low they head to zero marginal cost. And when they hit near zero marginal cost, it gives rise to a completely new economic system. In economic theory, the optimum market is where you sell at marginal cost. Marginal cost is after fixed cost. Once you pay for whatever the technology is, the marginal cost is what it costs to produce a unit. Classical economic theory, we've always said that the most optimum market is where you sell at marginal cost. Here's the problem. We never expected a technology revolution, digital revolution, that would be so powerful in its potential productivity that could actually reduce the marginal cost for some goods and services to near zero, meaning there's no longer a profit margin, and you can produce goods and services for each other beyond the market in the sharing economy for nearly free. This sharing economy didn't come out of the blue. Capitalism gave birth to this sharing economy. Let me be clear. As muddy as the sharing economy is, it's the first new economic system to enter onto the world stage since capitalism and socialism in the 19th century. It's a remarkable historical event. This is already happening. Zero marginal cost phenomena is not theoretical. It's been how many years since Napster? the file sharing service? About 17 years? 17 years. Well, this little file sharing service started a revolution. We have 3 billion people right now on the internet, and now the Internet of Things, who are actually producing and sharing virtual goods at near zero marginal cost beyond the market, disrupting entire industries. We have young people that are producing their own music. And what does it cost to have a little technology, a little machine that allows you studio quality music when you want to record in your home? And then whether you send that music to one person on the web or a billion, it's zero marginal cost. You just need a service provider. Keep your power up. I was surprised when that Korean performance artist a couple years ago, 1 billion people went to his website. Zero marginal cost. We have millions of young people any given day who are producing their own YouTube videos. Take a little video, put it up on the web. 1 billion people can see it. Zero marginal cost. We have people producing their own news blogs and social media. Near zero marginal cost. We have millions of people contributing to Wikipedia and constructing the knowledge of the world and a nonprofit website for free. This is the most improbable experiment I could ever imagine. I don't know how Jimmy Wales came up with this. I would have said this cannot succeed. Adam Smith said each individual pursues their own self-interest and never cares about the public good. But in pursuing their self-interest and not giving a damn about the public good, by pursuing their self-interest, the society is better off. I always thought it was a little dubious, but that's how we grew up. But apparently, none of the millennials have read Adam Smith. Because, for example, in Wikipedia, you're all freely giving your talent, putting things up on Wikipedia, constructing the knowledge of the world. You democratize knowledge in less than 15 years, and the accuracy is... Now, book publishing. What's happening? People are creating their own free ebooks. My new book came out on the Pirate Bays before we could publish in our languages, and God bless them, they were ranking it before Amazon could even touch it. We have 6 million college students taking massive open online college courses taught by the best professors at the best universities. They're getting college credits. It's free. You can't win here. You millennials have won. Unless we outlaw all the technology, we've got to find a way to live with it and find value with it. Entire industries have been disrupted in the 17 years since Napster. The music industry has shrunk. Television has declined because everyone's producing their own YouTube videos. You're all producers, sharing with each other. Newspapers and magazines have gone out of business with social blogs, but thousands of new enterprises have emerged. Not just Google, Facebook, and Twitter, all of these are new, but thousands of startup enterprises, profit and nonprofit. They're creating the platforms. They're creating the apps. They're creating the connectivity. They're using the analytics and the data. It's a revolution. Well, we thought there'd be a firewall here.
So the idea of zero marginal cost is basically that we have this internet infrastructure, and you can start a video streaming service leveraging that infrastructure at almost zero marginal cost. Like the guy, the Korean, what's his name, Gangnam Style, or what was it? Who just records a simple video, and there's 1 billion people actually looked at that video. This is ridiculous.
He said that means we could make a new content on the mashup.
Mashups. Mashups. But so the mashups
mashup means a zero marginal cost.
Zero marginal cost. Yeah. Zero marginal.
What do you mean mashup?
Mashup is basically reusing content from left, right, and center. Well, actually, so there is where it becomes a little bit dubious, because we also have intellectual property rights. So how are you going to deal with that? That comes back to where I wanted to go with this. So the idea of zero marginal cost is that basically the optimum price that you ask for a good is where the revenue marginal cost equals marginal revenue, right? So basically you make profit until your marginal cost for one extra unit start to supersede your the marginal price. But at zero marginal cost, the optimum price would be zero.
Yeah.
so everything becomes free, right? So that means that why would I produce? Because basically you're going to share all this content. And
yeah, exactly. Currently, I am producing UNO News Network.
Right.
But this is like a very same as NHK News.
Right.
But this is recording and publishing is 100% free.
Yeah.
But NHK cannot produce Japanese opinion for the rest of the world. But we can do that because there are no commentator, English-speaking commentator to speak out opinion in the rest of the world. But we can.
You use free software on YouTube. You use free. Everything is free. The infrastructure, you don't have to. You don't have to invest in a server. You don't have to invest in anything. Basically, you can do this for free, leveraging the infrastructure that is already there. So any player can come up with the idea. Okay, I'm going to present the Japanese views to the rest of the world at zero cost. It doesn't cost anything extra. The only thing you need is a computer.
Because you introduced me the recording system like this. You want to use this one.
Right.
It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. Yeah.
But now it's very easy to change video to the movie video or whatsoever. It takes couple hours, and then every night from 8 to 11 o'clock I'm arranging the video, cutting, chopping 10 minutes for each of those. But every Saturday I can generate more than 20 videos.
Yes. Right.
But nobody view it, but...
Well, okay, but you can. So then it's a matter of finding the right audience. That's
already producing hundreds videos in the YouTube. But 1 year later, it's about 1,000.
But then the risk is basically, because it's free, the price of it will also go close to free, right? Because if it becomes widely profitable, then a lot of people will also flog into that market. So with this kind of infrastructure, because the costs are almost zero, the price will also move towards zero, which will basically mean that we are in the business of sharing. The only people who can make money off this platform are the ones who put on value-added services, or who get so many eyeballs, so many people are actually watching that content, that they can get advertisement revenue for it. Because what is if everything is free and everything is accessible and everything is there, then the only thing that we are competing for is attention, eyeballs.
What?
Eyeballs.
What is this? Eyeballs.
People watching. So that becomes where where the market is so crowded, where the information is everywhere. The places where people actually decided to go, that's where where money's being made. So the people who are capable of attracting attention one way or the other, they are the ones who are capable of making money in the sharing economy.
This is difficult, right?
This is difficult. Yeah. Right. I think this content is clear. Maybe I don't need to show this. This is they talk about zero marginal costs in a Google talk.
What does he talking about?
Okay, well I'll show you a little. It's not that long anyway. It's a question. This is a talk at Google about near zero marginal costs.
You want to do a few questions?
I'm not an economist, but I thought I had a good understanding of what zero marginal cost meant.
Near zero.
Near zero.
Yeah.
But at least, so I have two questions on this. With regards to energy, you kept talking about solar. I have solar on my house. It's not zero marginal cost. I cannot produce more energy than I want without putting on more panels, which has a cost. But it's zero in the sense of I'm not consuming things like with coal, right? So I wasn't sure which of those two distinctions you were talking about and how you get to zero in that regard. And then I didn't understand it at all in logistics, because as far as I know, you still have to drive miles and that cost isn't really changing.
Let's talk about the solar panel or the wind turbine or the geothermal heat pump. You have to pay the fixed cost of the harvesting technology. It probably is going to take you somewhere between 3 and 9 years to pay back on the solar panels. But the moment that panel's up, you keep it clean, the sun is free. Coal is not free. Natural gas, shale gas, uranium, none of that's free. But the sun is free. You just capture it. The wind is free, you capture it. The geothermal heat's free, you capture it. So in that sense, it's near zero. But you're only advantaged if you're in an energy internet that's part of an Internet of Things. Because you may have a lull one day where the sun isn't shining. And you haven't stored that green electricity. Or maybe the wind's blowing at night, but you need the electricity during the day. So we have to create an energy internet that crosses continents. And that way, let's say in Eastern Europe, where it's nighttime, they have a lot of wind, the surplus goes up on the energy internet to the places which are still daytime. Or if you have a lot of sun somewhere in Europe and Western Europe during the day, you put the surplus up on the net, and that energy internet will take it to another part of Europe. So, you know, these energies are intermittent, and they change in different times of the day in different parts of a continent. So to the extent that we have an energy internet, we can share our surpluses when other has lulls, and we can, if we store it correctly, hydrogen and other storage technologies, we can deal with peak loads, base loads across continents. That's what we're attempting to do in Germany and in Europe right now. And I was just in China. That was a big surprise to me with China, because I didn't think they were going to be players. The Third Industrial Revolution, my former book, was published there 2 years ago, and the new premier read it in English and instructed the government to now move on a distributed energy internet and to move toward a Internet of Things. I was there in September with the leadership. 10 weeks later, after my meetings with government leadership, the Chinese government announced an $80 billion 4-year commitment to move the distributed energy internet across China so everyone can produce their own energy. By contrast, the U.S. is going to try to raise $3.5 billion over 20 years for a centralized smart grid. So I'm guardedly hopeful, but I think that these are real challenges. And for you, the challenge is your upfront cost. So you can pay them off and get to your marginal cost being nearly free. It's a challenge.
What about the logistics?
That's the newest one. And I deal with that in the book. It's brand new, last 24 months. We're dealing with now in Nord-Calais. We're doing a master plan for the oldest industrial region of France, and they have Dunkirk, a port facility. The logistics is the most inefficient part of the value chain. That's why it's costly. You have freight across the country. When you see a truck, sometimes it's only 20-30% full, or it's deadheading back with no cargo. It's not systematized. It's not efficient. What we're looking at now is a transport and logistics automated internet. And this would allow you to have everything modularized so that you can move shipments to any distribution center you want. For example, there are 5,000 warehouses in the U.S. So what? If you're a big company, vertically integrated, you own maybe 20 of them. So you have to send your stuff way out of the way, hold it there, and then take it to the destination. But what if all 5,000 warehouses, privately owned, came together in a cooperative? So when they had a space, it would be open to anybody. You follow me? Then, with 5,000 distribution centers, you could move to whichever one you wanted and save a huge amount of your transport time moving it through the system with GPS guidance. But you'd have to have all the containers modularized. Everything would have to be on the same standards. So you could move the package across that internet like you move all the packages across the communication internet. And then if you can move to driverless vehicles and drones, that's going to reduce your labor costs substantially. So you'll get toward zero, but it'll still be marginal cost, but fairly low compared to the costs we have now. It's exciting. We're just beginning this discussion in the last 24 months. We're laying down the first plan in northern France now, so we're on a learning curve.
Hi. Interesting.
So we're moving closer towards marginal cost, but that also means driving down the price. Thinking back about the discussion we had about GDP and what this new technology will actually result in. It will not only bring like unlimited economic growth.
Yeah, but currently I'm preparing the news network, and actually we discuss sort of things, right? Just put on the internet through YouTube, but exactly same as TV. But TV they pay a lot of money, right?
Right.
Tremendous money they're paying for the commentator and the actor.
Exactly.
But this kind of new technology is everything free. Even if they don't have money, even if they don't have money, like this equipment, I bought it, but I don't need to use it.
Right.
Do you know why? But because I can adjust brightness only by screen.
Right.
Right? Only that it's we need some speakers, we need some microphone, better microphone for recording, right? That's all.
Nothing.
I bought this one, but I don't need to use it, because, and if I have some more software, we can prepare some vaccine,
right?
Like
but you put a green green screen behind it, and you can project basically some kind of webcam. You can capture the
green screen.
So basically, if you want to, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but if you put a green screen, you can use that and project any kind of image. So you can put on Capitol Hill or today.
This kind of software.
Yeah, there's kind of software, and I'm not 100% sure how it works, but people in studios usually use green screens and things like that, and they just replace the background.
Why white screen cannot do this? Why green screen?
I'm not 100%. Do you know how that exactly works?
No, I don't know that the mechanism.
Oh, okay. But this is so amazing,
Amazing.
Actually, I don't know. I don't need this studio. I bought bird.
Yeah.
This bar is the standing bar is prepared. So background seat.
Right.
So this is three. The standing that I don't need it. And also the light, I don't need it, and I don't need cameras. Everything we don't need. Just this exactly here we can do. Just broadcasting whatever you want. It is the same as like Al Jazeera or some other broadcasting. Okay, depending on you can speak out opinion or I can speak out opinion. We can do it.
Right. So what you see is that like. Okay, we have the news networks. They have to employ many people. That means that and also they have budget to go overseas to capture the images locally. Individuals usually do not have that point, but there are niches, certain kinds of news that will reach certain kind of people.
Okay.
Very highly targeted niche stations can come up and going from zero to become actually make a lot of revenue. What's the name? The guy who does the historical series on YouTube. We always watch this guy. He's kind of funny. What's his name?
What are you talking about? I don't understand what you mean.
So what I'm saying is that these news networks. They have their own dynamics, but they also have high costs. Now, everybody can come up with his own idea for a news network. It will be difficult to do exactly the same as NHK and become competitive, because basically you don't have the budget, you don't have the people to actually produce that. But if you find your niche, if you find your target, your expertise, where you're really good at, and people believe it and they're entertained and they like what you're doing about this specific thing, you can create your own audience.
Do you know what is a focal point? Users will going to view this video or not. This is recording, voice of recording. Okay, it's I'm accessing YouTube, many YouTube for preparing for my school, but recording voice is bad. Okay, I skip it.
Right.
Okay, this is very important point. Instead of movie, most important is voice.
His voice.
Yeah. So I just voice is very important because Ohashi is setting up. This is the voice. So voice is very important. So always I'm checking the voice. Recording is okay. Like Kimoto's speaking is recorded or not. This is very important.
Right.
And Takahashi is speaking that, and through this speaker. And beforehand, speaker is sounded means vibrated.
Right.
Why this vibration fixed? Because of this one. This one caused noise.
Interference.
Yeah. So speaker was put on the top of this projector, so picking up noise. So now he set up like this, and all this distance is very important, right? And 50 centimeters is best.
The ideal distance.
Okay. So this sort of things. And so, okay, let's move.
Yeah.
But he is a very good speaker.
He's a very good speaker, yeah. So what we will see is that with the marginal cost going to zero, the prices will also go down and become more and more in a. We will arrive in a system where we have people not only working to produce and working in the traditional economy, but also in a sharing economy.
So recently, even if Kimoto is today here, but nobody here, but I don't care because we are recording and just talk with you. But this we're going to prepare for news network. So everybody watch this video after my editing the contents.
Right.
So beforehand, physically more audience will be expected, but not anymore. Even with no audience, but I don't care. But prepare video, just everybody watch it. Right. I distributed this video for 4,000 people. I don't know how many people view it or not. But
can you see it? You cannot see how many people have viewed the video? No?
No, not many.
Not many.
Okay.
Mechanically.
No,
it's just a startup.
Right.
Firewall to the physical world. What I'm saying with the zero marginal cost society is that firewall is broken now. It's called the Internet of Things, completely gone. We have millions of people now producing their own renewable energy right now at near zero marginal cost, free. And now as we move to car sharing and as we move to driverless transportation, we're going to see the marginal cost plunge toward near zero in transport and logistics in the next 20 years. Let's go back to Germany.
So we have this borderless area with IoT. We have this borderless area, but so we already talked about the dark web. We talked about privacy. How about vulnerability? Can that do for us?
If you write anything on your computer, you need to get Grammarly.
I write pretty much all day, every day.
It's not fun to have your 2-ton SUV's brakes hacked just as you're parking in front of a ditch.
Okay, hold on tight. Hold on. Oh.
That's what I've learned from Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, a pair of hackers who have spent the last year developing a piece of software that can wirelessly sabotage this 2014 Jeep Cherokee. It hasn't been altered in any way. There are no devices attached to it. But like many thousands of Jeeps around the world, it can be remotely hacked over the internet through a cellular connection to its entertainment system that would allow someone to take over its steering, its transmission, and even its brakes. To demonstrate that, I'm going to act as today's crash test dummy and drive it on the highway here in St. Louis, while Charlie and Chris hijack its digital systems from Charlie's house miles away. They wouldn't tell me what they had plans, but they assured me that it wouldn't be anything life-threatening.
Remember, Andy, no matter what happens, don't panic.
It's not the first time I've driven a car while it's being attacked by these two hackers. But in 2013, they were in the back seat, and their laptops were wired into the vehicle through a port in its dashboard. Now they're sending the same sort of attacks remotely, and I have no idea what they might do.
He's going as fast as I've seen him, so. So first we're going to turn the fan on him. Yeah, let's turn the fan on, see if he even notices.
Alright, something just turned on, all the fans and AC and stuff. I didn't do that. The trick started small. Oh my god! There's a picture of Charlie and Chris in tracksuits that just appeared on the dashboard. But as I drove down the interstate, things started getting unpleasant. And very loud.
Perfect.
I can't turn it down.
This was such a fun video. Steve Logan got to enjoy it.
And now the air conditioning is blasting, the music is blasting, and I can't see anything because of the windshield wiper fluid.
Okay, do it. Do it. Kill the engine. So we're killing the engine right now.
It says park sense. Actually, can't accelerate. I stomped on the gas, but the Jeep slowed to a crawl. It says 43 miles an hour, but I'm not going that fast. I turned on my hazard lights, but I was still stuck in the right lane with no shoulder to escape onto. Guys, I'm stuck on the highway.
What did he say? Oh, I think he's panicking. He's not going to be able to hear us with that radio. It's so loud.
Guys, I need the accelerator to work again.
The accelerator will work. It won't work! You're doomed.
Seriously, it's dangerous. I need to move.
You gotta turn the car off!
Okay.
Now you should be good to go. Semi drove by.
Alright, I'm gonna pull over, because I have PTSD. Charlie and Chris have only tested the full range of their attacks on a Jeep Cherokee. But they say that hundreds of thousands of late model Chrysler vehicles may be vulnerable through a feature called Uconnect, an internet-connected computer in the dashboard known as its head unit.
These cars' head units expose a particular service that probably they didn't want to. It lets you do things like query it for information, like the GPS or the VIN or all sorts of other things, but it also lets you just run commands.
So you have to first break into the car remotely over the cell network and then move laterally if you want to do things like send CAN messages. And those are the messages that we can use to control things like steering or the windshield wipers or braking.
They plan to release a portion of their exploit code at the annual Black Hat Hacker Conference next month. They've also alerted Chrysler, which is issuing a security patch. But they say a lot more needs to be done to protect a new generation of cars that are increasingly connected to the internet and potentially hackable. You guys basically brought this car to a standstill while it was driving on the highway, which I may never forgive you for. And that was just like an experiment. What do you think is the worst case scenario?
We wanted to point out, to show that this attack has serious consequences for this vehicle. And so we did, attack you. But we did it in as safe a way as we could, so we didn't want you to get hurt, obviously. That's why we're working, is to make sure that we figure out vulnerabilities, weaknesses, get them fixed.
We're only two guys with one car, right? So, we can't look at every car, and we want to release this information because more people like us need to be focused on this problem.
After their stunt on the highway, Chris and Charlie still wanted to show me a couple of other tricks. Below a certain speed, they can control the Jeep's steering as long as it's in reverse, pop its locks, mess with the speedometer, and, of course, disable the brakes. Okay, hold on tight. Hold on.
Oh, he's not getting out of that. I think so. We're gonna be doing some pushing.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying. That's how you drive in the Midwest. New Yorkers don't know how to do that.
It's not fun to have your 2-ton...
So that is actually a risk for everything that's connected to the internet. And since we are talking about IoT, everything will be connected with everything. So they are not through this connectivity, they can see GPS coordinates. They can do basically anything. You can track anybody anywhere. Mm-hmm. Toy with their car and basically anything. So that is actually a very serious concern. Not only privacy, but also direct play with things. If you're going to put your lock, the lock of your house on a smart grid, on an IoT network, you can be sure that people will try to hack it. That's a risk. That's a serious risk.
Yeah, just recently I read news like that. So, especially in China, there's something happened like this. Right?
Yeah.
And this article said, like a taxi, no driver taxi. You take taxi and you ask the taxi go there, this and there. But if taxi is controlled by government, like China, but taxi don't go, okay? Just limited area, only limited area. The taxi take you to the place, but not everywhere. So those things will happen. Many cases happen. If the government want to kill you, but she actually kill you, right?
Right.
It's a kind of Russia. Right? Something happened. This is basically this kind of things happening.
Yeah, so it is a serious concern because we're getting into a society, we're coming into a society where we're really getting out of control, where we really have to balance the ease of use and the potential benefits and efficiency with the serious risk of actually like losing complete control over everything.
Like for example, if you want to kill somebody in the house, and many people dead in the house in winter season because of
monoxide.
Cold. Like they just old people sleeping, but air conditioner stopped, so old people dead in the morning. So sort of things intentionally can do that. Okay, at night, okay, the air conditioner intentionally stop it, and then in the morning this person dead. And I'm just going to air conditioner stop at 2 a.m. and morning dead. Sort of thing happen. If Russia is kind of serious issue because minus 40 degrees centigrade, dead. And if you recognize at 2 o'clock and wake up at minus 40 degrees and you cannot fix it, he's supposed to be dead. He cannot sustain his life. So things happen. This is very actually happening, right?
Well, it's easily imaginable, and especially if we cannot maintain net neutrality and we give governments certain rights to actually influence and interfere with this, or companies, then this all becomes possible. So we have the convenience of having everything wired and connected together, but we also have the risk that somebody can step in and take full control of our lives without us noticing it, and having the capacity to kill you. It's very scary. It's very scary. Okay, let's continue.
What's happened in the 10 years since that first conversation with the Chancellor? We are now in Germany at 32% of all of the electricity powering Germany now is solar and wind, right now, in 10 years. And this is a northern country, doesn't have a lot of sun. We're going to be 35% of the electricity solar and wind by 2020. We're going to be 100% renewable energy by 2040. Absolutely. And what's interesting is the fixed cost of introducing the solar technology and the wind turbines and the geothermal heat pumps. Solar and wind are on an exponential curve, just like computers. When I was a kid in the 1940s and 50s, there's only a few computers. They cost millions of dollars. And the chairman of IBM at the time said, we probably will need a total of 7 computers. Maybe 7. This was an optimistic forecast. We did not anticipate exponential curves in computer chips. Moore's Law. So all of a sudden, Intel figures out that their engineers are doubling the capacity on that chip every 2 years. This is still going on. So even if you're making $2 a day, everyone's going to be connected to the Internet of Things within less than 15 to 20 years. And the fixed costs are going to be as cheap as your cell phones in 20 years. Everyone's going to produce their own green electricity. These exponential curves are not going away. You know how much a solar watt used to cost? $78 to generate 1 watt solar in 1978. You know how much it costs to generate a solar watt today? Not $78, 50 cents. It's going to be 35 cents in 18 months from now. This is really moving quick. And this is what you're not told here in the United States by the energy companies. We have power and utility companies, some of them in my group, global group, and they're quietly, right now, buying long-term 20-year contracts for solar and wind electricity in Europe and America, quietly, right now, for 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And the Berkeley National Labs, government labs, just announced they're generating wind and solar. I think it's somewhere between 2.8 and 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour. It's over, actually, for fossil fuel and nuclear. No. And the next big bubble, I will tell you...
No?
Well, not yet. But we're getting there. I published this one on Facebook. I'm not sure whether you read it. Tumbling costs for wind, solar batteries are squeezing out fossil fuels. It says this is the situation today. This is from March 28th. Bloomberg New Energy Finance Network. The latest Bloomberg New Energy Finance study of comparative costs worldwide show an 18% improvement in competitiveness on onshore wind and solar in the last year, and new and rapidly developing roles for batteries. What is in this article says that especially in countries with a very good and positive geographical conditions for wind energy, for solar energy, like India and North Africa, the capacity and the price at which they can produce 1 gigawatt hour is so good that it becomes a serious threat. Already becomes more competitive than fossil fuels. So it actually becomes a very viable, this renewable energy becomes a viable alternative, especially with another trend that's going on, that the batteries are becoming better and better. So it makes renewable energy a completely viable source of energy, and that will keep on continuing, because with better efficiency, lower cost for batteries, higher capacities of batteries, other geographical areas will also become more competitive vis-a-vis the fossil fuels. So with Moore's law in mind, we are actually going to an irreversible trend towards renewable energy. I think you read this article, no, Ono-san?
Huh?
I think you read this article.
No, I don't.
You liked it. You just pressed like. So this is this article. So the latest Bloomberg study of comparative costs worldwide shows an 18% improvement of competitiveness of onshore wind and solar in the last year, and new and rapidly developing roles for batteries. In this article, we discuss. It is discussed that, especially in areas like, for example, India and North Africa, with a lot of sun, solar energy is becoming a very viable source of energy because there is so much of it that and that in combination with the improved capacity of batteries, the cost of producing batteries, actually renewable energy becomes a serious competitor for fossil fuels, and with Moore's law in mind, with decreasing costs, improving capacity, we will see more and more regions in the world that will become competitive vis-a-vis the fossil fuels. So this is an irreversible trend towards renewable energy. Oh, not this one. Not this one. Oh, not this one. Not this one. This one. Yeah.
Now is going to be the $100 trillion in stranded assets in the fossil fuel industry. This is going to make the subprime mortgage look like the small-time game, because we're moving toward parity, and then solar and wind are getting cheaper and cheaper. That's what's going on behind the scenes right now. But what's interesting...
There's an interesting warning. So the investment, the money that's invested in the second industrial revolution infrastructure, everything based on oil and coal and everything like that there's a lot of money in investment that still needs to be earned back. The loans that are given on these on this infrastructure, how are they going to be repaid if they're not going to make money anymore, if they're no longer being competitive? That's going to be a big financial crisis.
You're talking about now?
In the future, what's going to happen when renewable energy is going to take over, when they're moving towards parity, and then under influence of Moore's law, we see that basically fossil fuels are no longer a competitive source of energy, then what's going to happen with all the loans, all the money that's been given to all these energy companies to grow and maintain this infrastructure? That all needs to be written off at once. Are we able to actually see any of those loans back?
No way.
No way. So that's another financial crisis that is going to bubble up pretty soon, I think.
In Germany, once you pay the fixed cost for your solar panel and wind turbine, the marginal cost of producing the energy in Germany today is zero. The sun has not sent us a bill in Germany. The wind hasn't invoiced us. The geothermal heat has not come to us with a bill. It's free. So what happens when German businesses can plug in to a communication internet that then converges with an energy internet, and we digitalize the electricity grid so everyone can produce their own solar and wind and either use it off-grid or sell it back to the grid? What happens when companies plug in to an energy internet where the cost of the energy is near zero marginal cost? Think about when they have to move across their value chain, and at each step of conversion on their value chain, their energy cost is near zero. How does any second industrial revolution country compete with that? And it's not big Germany only. Little Denmark's done this. Anybody can do this. Who's producing all the new energy? In Germany, there are 4 major power companies: EnBW, RWE, E.ON, and Vattenfall. These giant global vertically integrated companies. And frankly, we thought they were invincible. What's happened to them in 10 years is what happened to the music industry, television, newspapers, magazine, and book publishing. Thousands of small players have come together in electricity cooperatives, farmers, small businesses, neighborhood associations. All of them went to the banks and got loans, these electricity cooperatives, and every bank was completely fine about giving them the loans. Why? Because they knew that the energy they generated would get a premium price when they sell it back to the market. Nobody was turned down. They're creating all the new energy. This is power to the people, literally and figuratively power to the people. What happened to the big 4 power companies? They're producing less than 7% of the new power, and they acknowledge they're out of the game. Why? To their credit, they were the most efficient means to produce and distribute centralized power, fossil fuel and nuclear power, vertical integration. But the new energies, they require millions of small players connecting where they are and collecting. You have to collect the sun everywhere in little amounts, and the wind everywhere where you are, and the geothermal heat everywhere where it is, and we rewards cooperatives who laterally scale and join together in networks. Big companies can't put all these players together. The players come together in their own regions, the cooperatives, and they join together. It is power to the people. Does this mean this is the end of the energy companies? Not necessarily. Many will go out of business. Some will not. About 7 years ago, the E.ON, one of the giant 4 companies, asked if I would debate their chairman, Mr. Tyson, but in a neutral country, the Netherlands. We had a 3-hour debate. And I said to him, look, you're not leaving the second industrial revolution tomorrow morning, but you also have to be in the third industrial revolution tomorrow morning, because you have a 25, 30-year transition to get from the second to the third and find new value. And I said, in the new system, it operates quite differently than the old system. In the new third industrial revolution, you make more money by selling less and less and less electricity. I said, what you do is you set up partnerships with thousands of enterprises, and you help manage the energy flow through their value chains. You help them with their big data. You help them mine that big data with the analytics. You help them with their algorithms and apps, dramatically increase their productivity. In return, those thousands of enterprises will share their gains back with the power companies. It's called performance contracts. We're now doing it. Guess what? Last year, the chairman of E.ON, took him 7 years. They're moving to renewable energies, and they want to help manage parts of the energy internet with energy services.
So why is that important? Because every idiot now can put a solar panel on his roof. If you don't provide the services with it, how to actually offer that to other parties, how to keep it accountable. It has to be very dumb, plug and play, without people having to study or do anything with it. This is basically, it just needs to work, right? So there needs to be some kind of somebody who's the market leader, who's basically keeping an eye on all these flows in terms of energy and in terms of money, to make this easily workable for anybody on that network. So there is somebody who needs to be the broker here, and that could be the energy and energy companies.
Why he's talking about energy company will getting losing their business?
Well, because we are moving away. But energy companies, they have been in the business of bringing in big tankers with oil, or financing big pipelines that bring in oil from Russia, or building and maintaining nuclear power that is very much centralized, that produces a lot of power and distributes to many households. But now we're going from this vertically organized energy to a horizontally organized energy, where every house will have its own solar panel on its roof.
Oh, is that the reason why from centralized to distributed?
Yes. Yeah, just like the internet, basically. There's no central authority in the internet. It's all distributed. It's everybody is equal in this network. So we no longer rely on a centralized power supply. But it's all becoming.
So it means the utility company will going to disappear within 3 decades.
Yes, 3 decades.
But still
faster, I think.
Sewage or water providing company exists. Water, sewage.
Yeah, sewage definitely. Water too. Yeah, because water will not automatically flow towards us.
Disappearing in utility company. Only utility company.
Because basically nobody can produce water by himself. We can capture water, like rainwater, for example, but I don't know whether that would be very efficient. We can generate power efficiently with the solar power things, but I don't think we can easily extract water from our own properties.
Edson, distributed power supply system has an advantage. That is transmission loss. There's no transmission loss.
Right.
That's very great.
It's very big. Yeah, that's very big. Yeah, because we're losing a lot. Yeah. So that's like energy efficiency. We talked about that last week, or he talked about that last week, about energy efficiency. So there's so much heat loss when we are going from one party to the other, and really physically and very visible is the transportation loss in energy. That's a big cost, and it just comes right through your roof into your house. It's very efficient.
EDF, the great nuclear power in France, has joined our group. We're doing the whole build-out of the third industrial revolution in parts of Europe, in northern France, the Netherlands, Luxembourg. And EDF said, we're with you. They're on the ground helping lay this out. They're not leaving nuclear tomorrow, but they see that the handwriting's on the wall. So the companies that don't go there, we don't need them. It's not just Europe, now China. When President Xi came into power with Premier Li announced that and I was pleased, he announced he had read my book, The Third Industrial Revolution. He put out a public announcement. I'd never met him. I'd never even been to China. And he instructed the central government of China to begin looking at these themes that I'm laying out to you to move China to a third industrial revolution. They're mindful in China. They lost the whole first industrial revolution. They missed almost all the second industrial revolution. It came in the tail in the last 10 years. And they said, we're not going to lose the third industrial revolution. We want to collaborate with the third industrial revolution. And they said, quote, be among the leaders. To show you how fast they move. I've been shuttling back and forth, but after the first visit, it was about 11 weeks later, the chairman of the state grid, which is the largest electricity grid in the world, announced an $82 billion 4-year commitment to digitalize the Chinese grid so that millions of Chinese people could produce their own solar and wind in their local communities and share it back on an energy internet. That started this year. Yeah. Watch Europe, watch China. The coming together of the communication internet with the renewable energy internet gives rise to the automated GPS driverless transportation logistics internet. We built the whole global economy, the second industrial revolution, around car ownership. That's what this was all about. You've thrown us a curve. You really have. Apparently, you don't want to own cars anymore. This is grandma and grandpa. They got 2 cars sitting in the driveway, cleaning and waxing them every few weeks, and they're never used. Or they're at the office 90% of the day, never used. You don't want to own cars. You want access to mobility in car-sharing networks, not ownership of cars in markets, correct? So there's a problem here. The problem is, for every car shared in car sharing in the sharing economy, we're eliminating 15 cars. This is both the problem and the opportunity. Larry Burns was the former vice president of General Motors until a few years ago. Now he's a professor at the University of Michigan. So Larry just did a study, very revealing. He studied Ann Arbor, Michigan. We can eliminate 80% of the vehicles with better mobility, cheaper. Now let's extrapolate Larry's study. We've got 1 billion cars, buses, and trucks choking us in traffic around the world. They're the 3rd major cause of global warming emissions. The number 1 cause of global warming emissions is buildings. But in Europe, we're now retrofitting those buildings, transforming into micro power plants and big data centers off carbon. Anybody know what the number 2 cause of climate change, global warming emissions are by industrial activity? Number 1 is buildings. We always talk about it. Number 3 is transport. What's number 2?
Consumption of meat.
Meat. We have 1.3 billion cows. They take up about 23% of the land mass of the earth. I love cows, but the methane they produce is a major contributor to global warming, much more powerful than CO2. And then when we pasture those animals, we have the fertilizers that emit nitrous oxide, and it goes on and on. And I should say that, without mentioning names, even some of the prophetic voices and the climate change debate will never mention this, because they do not want to antagonize people and even suggest that we may want to change our diet and move down the food chain so that we can live healthy, respect our fellow creatures, and at the same time mitigate climate change. So you never hear this in the debate. Truth. Never. Number 3 is transport. So if Larry's right, Larry Burns, we're going to eliminate probably 80% of the vehicles in the world in the next 2 generations because the millennials, your children and grandchildren, are never going to own cars again. This I know. And the remaining 200 million vehicles, they're going to be electric. They're going to be fuel cell driven. They're going to be operated by near zero marginal cost renewable energy. This is already happening. They're going to be 3D printed with composite recycled materials at low marginal cost. They're going to be driverless. This is already happening. This gets to the question of, is this the end of the road for transportation companies? Not necessarily. But they have to change their business model. While they're still in the second industrial revolution selling cars, buses, and trucks, they have to move to the third industrial revolution where they help manage vast networks along with all the other players. This is a very cool thing that happened about 6 weeks ago.
This is the Daimler-Benz idea.
So many people, Japanese or not Japanese, everybody want to listen kind of sort of IT technology innovation.
Right.
Because it's very interesting, right? So many people attend the seminars in the symposium and to listen it.
Right.
Right.
Right. But what is the impact? What does it do for our society as a whole? That they're really thinking through about where we stand in 20, 30 years' time will be completely different. Everything will be upside down. And all the money that we spend now in maintaining infrastructure, in keeping these things going, restarting nuclear power plants, things like that, is all distracting from the long-term perspective in where we want to be in 20 years' time.
It caused a shortage of system designers and programmers.
Yeah. Well, and people who are actually going to retrofit these buildings, put in the new infrastructure, the sensors, the systems. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So to improve the energy efficiency of these buildings, for example, that will require very, very, very big investment in isolation technology, in using better, introducing higher efficiency technology, in actually working together with the elements, like capturing the wind, capturing the sun, and making them zero footprint. That's still a lot of money that needs to be invested. So we have a transition period of about 20, 30 years. It will not be possible to go from this to renewable energy in one day. We simply cannot do that.
By the way, IoT, like for everything, every furniture, everything, apparatus, everything.
Right.
How long does it take? 5 years?
It doesn't take that long.
5 years.
So basically, look at the car example that we saw.
How about no taxi driver? 5 years?
Well, we already have them. In where was it,
Somewhere?
Georgia or
Really?
we already have them. There was actually an accident, a fatal accident with a Tesla, a driverless Tesla. A fatal accident happened. This is already happening. It will maybe take a little while before we see them in Tokyo, for example. But we're going there.
It's interesting.
It will go quickly, because once that we will reach the point where we are actually going to converge, then all of a sudden everybody will want to go through that.
My concern about currently senior person, retired person, switching his business to taxi driver, many of those.
Right.
But this kind of business gone.
It will be gone.
What are they going to do? Like
they can become police officers. But I see police officers at every street corner. They are organizing traffic.
No,
but there's already traffic lights.
Already gone. So what's happened? And recently, old people walking around this downtown here. It's the daytime, and many people, they don't have job.
Right.
It's more and more. What's happened? Social unrest. What the government going to do? Like me, I'm doing a lot of things. It's very few people. Almost people, they don't do nothing.
Right.
And they wife don't want welcome. He's going to stay at their house.
Right.
What's happened?
Many people should learn the liberal arts.
Exactly. So exactly 30% of his household will support to be single, especially men, because wife don't want to live up with him, because like my condominium and old people complain a lot is if I'm skating outside or skateboarders. It means inside house he criticize wife a lot. The same, right? He speak like he was senior vice president of some company, going back home, but he's no title, but he still does look like the same way.
Right.
Okay, he tried to make an order everything, but everybody hate him.
Right.
Right. So this is, I recognize that, and he is watching outside the street and call police office. I'm skating.
Right.
And police came here and he apologized me because he had a phone call from old people. So he apologized me, please don't skating road and go inside the condominium, walking.
You cannot skate outside? Is that
No,
prohibited?
No, because old people called police office. And police office came to stop me to skating road.
Huh?
Yeah. Because some people just they watching Superbike whole day.
Right, but is there a law that prevents you from skating?
Yeah.
Is there a law? You cannot skate?
No. But in Tokyo, it's just only usually beforehand they stop skating, but not now. But just kind of old people call police. Skater is so dangerous. So they came to ask me to stop.
Yeah, well, old people are really a problem also for our business. Like people call the police when they see somebody with luggage near their house. Oh, Airbnb, minpaku, mewaku. Right. Same.
So this is but those old people getting increasing year by year. This social unrest. But like currently he tried to stop skateboarding park near from my house. They try to, those people is so dangerous, so wrong, right? So they try to close this park. Old people close, and they questionnaires circulating to my room, my condominium, and 3, 4, 5 condominium around there. They ask questions. We had better close this park. This is it's stupid because
what are they going to do with the youth there? They use that.
Oh, okay. These old people, they have nothing to do, so they try to complain everything. This is old. What says old problem?
Old man's disease.
Yeah, low guy, old man disease. So this is, I think, is kind of issues increasing, and they will going to be isolated, and family will broken up, and then single people household will increasing, and next 5 or 10 days is 30% of those houses single. So this is caused a lot of social problem. So how is going to fix it? I think it's very difficult to fix it. This is a future, social problem. Okay, we're going to IT IoT is cause we don't need people, we don't need employees, and this cause the senior member they don't have a chance to work.
No, well, like taxi drivers, etc.
So that's cause a lot of problem.
Disappear.
What is how are we going to give them dream? Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, but we're talking about elderly people, but if you're creative, basically, with IoT, you can connect to anything. So there are business opportunities everywhere.
But it means we don't need any person for those area. Many area we don't need person anymore. Like a supermarket.
Well, yeah, supermarket or taxi driver.
Like I tell you, police office is the same.
Offices.
Police office is the same. Police office. We don't need to supervise. As a camera, we're going to observe it.
Right.
Street.
Well, we already have way too many police officers.
Exactly. Also, white colors.
It's ridiculous. Like I went to Nishiarai this week. Nishiarai is a kind of countryside area. I don't know how many police officers are there. And what are they doing? They stand at the cross at a pedestrian road, and then when the light turns green, they go on the pedestrian road and they say stop. But everybody already stops because there's a traffic light there. What is the police doing there? There's no point.
Why are they doing that?
I have no idea, because they have too many people, I think.
But police people not anymore. It's many police offices eliminated.
They still have way too many, because otherwise I cannot explain why they put police officers on a crossing where there is already traffic lights. There's no point.
Really? But recently, year by year, fewer policemen.
I think in Nishiarai they can cut
only Nishiarai.
They can cut half. I see them. I think that's so useless.
So this is my social problem: is old people is more and more. How we're going to handle those people?
But in the Netherlands, nobody works. So maybe we can draw a parallel.
What they're doing is old people.
They read the newspaper. They cook a little. They fight a little bit with their wives, and that's it.
No social problem.
Not well. Where did I read that? Oh, I read that in a Japanese newspaper. Nowadays, people actually start to do shoplifting because they're so lonely. They want to go to jail.
Oh yeah, because this is because single person and he doesn't have money.
Yeah.
And lonely, and she don't want to make food, and she won't go into jail.
Right.
Yeah, this is true.
So
also the jail will go and take care of your health. Single, nobody take care of your health.
Right.
So going to jail, but jail is the people who are going to take care of you. Even if you have problem for eye or even problem for walking, they're going to take care of you. But this is a kind of social problem. It's increasing.
Right.
My case is not normal. Right. So I'm just currently daily life I'm lot of problem because of old people has big voice, and just have a look. He's a normal person, but he's still the same position as for his company, and he tried to speak. He's frustrating. He tried to speak at any kind of issues. He tried to complain, criticize, stop it, doing opinion. But this is not pointed the right way. But we want to eliminate his. But we cannot do that. Policeman cannot do that. He just apologized me. No way. He just because he's just watching street and he just called police. But I just come over here. I cried, could you go in there? Going back to the condominium and walking way and skating. No problem. But if going to walking way, skating, but old people coming and watching, and also call to the condominium guard people. Guard people came to see me and don't do it. That's ridiculous. This is also recently we have big problem. They try to close park for younger people skateboarding.
But what are young people going to do? Because they
this is a problem because old people don't care. Okay, she just many people getting older too selfish, and all just irritating, frustrating, and he complained to his wife, but his wife doesn't handle his complaint, so he turned around just like a condominium committee, joined the members, board members. He just raised a lot of opinions. Try to do the wrongdoing, but cannot handle it. And we can handle it just as it is. This is the current problem. I just only observe this. This is a problem. And those guard people told me, "I'm sorry," he said in front of complainant. Told me, "I'm sorry." Just old person to complain. And he just only to follow on that old person. And beforehand, my condominium front door, two person is taking care of who's getting, but back door nobody standing. Old door, and that old people complain that the condominium. This is very risk. Okay, unknown people coming in from back door. So while at back door, one person standing whole 24 hours. But this is crazy, right? And all a while, 1 month, and then they stop it. But old people going to again complain them. They try to do it again and stop and do it again. Kind of repeating. This is ridiculous.
Why are they so worried about who's coming in, like Minpaku or?
No. This is many people coming in because this condominium, 3,000 people living in one condominium. Okay, and even if Minpaku or not, who's going to recognize? But no way, okay? So no way, we cannot manage it. This is sort of old people. They can speak out any kind of complaint. But he is looks good in looking because he had maybe former company owner or something, and he's he speak out very smart way, nothing problem. But his thinking way is sort of stupid, but very difficult to control it. Right? So this kind of people is increasing. So this is very big. We cannot arrest him, okay? Right? and we can tell him that you don't go out from your house. But we can tell him. This is a problem. This is actually the old people problem. Younger people, we can give him education. Should not do that. Old people never listen. This is a problem.
But how are we going to? Because it's actually really a social problem. Because if the elderly are going to dictate everything,
exactly, this is a problem.
They're going to put a big brake on society.
Exactly. So this is a current problem. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Maybe he's going to survive next 20 years or 30 years. How are we going to control him? After retirement, 60 or 65 years old, and then he's still survive 20, 25 years until 90. Who's going to control those people? But we can tell him,
maybe somebody should remotely operate his air conditioner.
But you know, but we can.
Maybe that's the way to control them.
And we cannot do that. So this is a really serious problem for this IoT, innovation or revolution, and employee opportunity, unemployment rate is going to increase, especially for senior members. But we don't know how to do. The government never thinking about this, right? Local organizations, they don't care about this, or they cannot do whatever they can do that. So this is a problem.
Well, or basically just say, well, okay, you are not the only one who lives here. We also have young people who should have the right to have something to do here in this area.
Yeah, they distribute questionnaires for each house. And how do you think about shut out this skateboarding park? I written down just what you said. Are you going to steal your young people's dream? No kidding. I just written down. And but very few people just speak up this kind of problem.
Right, because they don't have kids, so they don't care.
That's right. So this is a problem, and also society getting older. So more problems.
And they're going to regret it, because if there's nothing to do, well, looking at the Netherlands, if there's nothing to do, young people get bored, and then they become really nasty because they have a lot of energy and they start to do all kinds of undesired things like vandalism or criminal behavior.
I think Europe is the same, getting old people increasing, right? No problem.
I don't know if I'm 100% true, but I think that elderly people in the Netherlands are a little less wagamama than the Japanese.
Japanese is very wagamama.
すごい wagamama. I really feel.
That's the reason I understand. And senior old people, wife want to divorce with his husband. His husband, after he retired the company, he is staying in the house all day. Wife cannot patient what he is talking about.
Yeah, but wives are just as bad, actually. Wives are just as bad. When I talk about like minpaku toka, wives, they stay home all the time. They have nothing else to do but look out the windows.
What is the same?
The same. It's like crazy. Like you put the garbage out in the then the moment you go, she runs across the street and starts to look at whether you have separated the garbage, and if not, then she's going to call the police.
So you got problem for minpak?
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah, it's terrible.
Your wife is the old wife is the same.
Old wife.
So old wife is the problem, and old husband is the problem. Yeah. What's going to do? And this is actually a problem. And I wanted to tell them, close your mouth, and you don't concern about outside issue.
Right.
Why you try to involve in social work? But they just they're eager to get involved in everything, right? Because they have a time.
But we need to find new meaning for people to actually stay a member of society and become active part of society. In Amsterdam, they came up with this local initiatives where young people are being connected to elderly people. So there are all kinds of volunteer programs where young people they kind of team up with an elderly person in the neighborhood. So what they do is then they become registered. So it's also kind of a buddy program. So the elderly people also can feel kind of at ease, because the buddy is registered. And
younger people will going to take care of all senior people. And last month, I'm a judgment of some innovative project kind of organization I'm belonging to as a judge person. And one person is proposed senior member how to handle senior member project, but actually she doesn't recognize what is real issue, and she just consider for the after 65 years old person how to take care of those senior members or some wheelchairs or some sort of things.
Right.
I told her no, it's not the issue. Issue different, and but she doesn't understand. Younger people, 30s people, don't understand. 20s never understand how to go to handle for the senior member. So I think this is a serious social problem. Who's going to take care of this?
Right.
This is actually just
loneliness.
Life is also a problem.
Loneliness. It's also to do with loneliness. People become isolated, become pissed off with the world.
Yeah, they have no dream, and they don't consider for future.
Right. I mean, the television also becomes very boring. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right. This is true. How many slides do you have?
I have a few more, but actually we still have a lot of video left.
What are you going to do next week?
We're going to continue finalize this movie, and then we're going to move on to what did we learn and what does it mean for Japan?
What do you mean?
So, well, basically what we're seeing here is a lot of things that are happening in the world, but what are the issues that are specific for Japan? Which things can we copy? Which things are relate? What needs to happen here?
You mean Japan for what?
Japan. So, what is the situation in terms of the third industrial revolution, and the situation in Japan? What is the place here? What kind of impact will?
Oh yes, still to keep going for the IT innovation. And
like this kind of problem that you're suggesting, I think actually that the elderly in Japan are a little bit different from the elderly that I know from the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think if you have interest in, we need to compare with Netherlands culture and Japanese culture.
So, for example, what I see in Japan is that there are a lot of divorces, that a lot of couples, they cannot live well together after retirement. It's completely different in the Netherlands.
In Japan, the divorce not so high.
But the number of couples that are, well, maybe not divorced, but completely on non-speaking terms with each other, once retirement starts, that's so
That
high.
is different?
Different, completely different.
Communicate well?
Communicate well. They actually start traveling together, and they.
Why
start to
Japanese
enjoy
not do that?
I think because Japanese people work too hard.
Mm.
They completely dedicate themselves first to the company, then to the family. In the Netherlands, it's the other way around: first to the family, then to the company. So there's a saying in the Netherlands: "I work to live, not live to work." I don't think that is something. That's not. I cannot imagine that's a saying in Japan.
Mm.
So it's basically the husband has neglected his wife for his entire career, and then after he's done, and he comes back home, basically, it's like being somebody who's unfaithful to his wife. He's been unfaithful to his wife until he's 65. Then he comes back, and she's supposed to forgive him for that. She will not do that. She's pissed off.
Mm.
And we don't have that in the Netherlands, because in the Netherlands we have summer holidays. There's 3 weeks in the year where husband and wife they go and they travel together, and they have weekends and time they spend together, and it all is aimed at supporting the private life. That's the focus of attention. That's why we are working.
What is the background or basic culture or tradition or whatever? Christianity? Mental background?
Yes, definitely. Family is very important. The role of the family, husband and wife. Sunday is a day of rest. It's a day that you praise God and you take time off and focus on your spiritual life. So every week there is a reset in your work. In Japan, I don't think that is true. It's just go.
This is bad. But I did, but this is I think this is not good.
No, it's not good. It really puts a strain on your personal life. So you really have to dedicate yourself. And the company takes care of you financially, but the rest you're doomed.
What are we going to do? I think we have.
We will get the technology. We will get the time to basically stop working so ridiculously hard and start to focus on doing things more efficiently and more effectively, and use the time that we have left to actually live smarter.
I think a lot of things we can study from your country, and I want to deliver some message for the Japanese people, right? Or we try to inform the overseas people and what's a Japanese problem. Japanese people has problem, how to fix it. And European people, they do not trust Japanese people because they believe Japanese are, very very at odds, different people, right? So we need to change it.
So after we do this technology, then let's look at especially focused on elderly people and the way that we are organize our private lives versus the way that Japanese society organizes.
Yeah, not only all the people, but I think Japanese in general.
Yeah.
We're going to need
through all stages, like students is also, there's such a big difference between young people in the Netherlands and in Japan. It's huge. It's really very different.
Even if I and you going to do this sort of things for past 4 years, but still we have lots of things to discuss, right? So in your mind you have lots of concerns for Japanese people. I'd like to discuss about this, right?
Okay.
So sort of things that you just, but this IT is your expert area, so we can discuss better, right? Okay.
Okay.
So today finish.
All right. Yes.
Okay, today finish. Oh, long day, and just I sleep 1 hour.
Takahashi-san.
Hi.
Closing remarks.
Closing remark.
Let's see. I was also sleeping for 1 hour.
Sugoi. I had a very interesting session today, Takedo. Not so interesting that prevent you from sleeping, unfortunately.
No, no matter what topic.
Okay. So no closing remarks?
Yeah, I'll give it. Kimoto-san.
Kimoto-san.
Still sleeping.
Okay. Today, Edo told me the smart grid. I think smart grid is a very good for Japan. Because Japan should import the minimum gas fuel. If Japan realize a smart grid country, we could save the minimum gas and fuel.
Right.
That's very important for Japan.
Right.
That's
So-
my conclusion.
And I would like to suggest on top of that Japan should suppress the inclination to make their own smart grid technology, but actually start and work together with Germany to actually import some of that technology and provide some of their technology to Germany, so that we can speed up the process in Germany as well as in Japan, because it would be a shame that if we would actually start to replicate and try to do this all by ourselves. This is a pitfall that I very often see in Japan, that we always try to do everything by ourselves instead of working together with other countries. Because if we are going to do this all by ourselves, then we will not be able to sell the technology anywhere in the world, and it will basically mean that the game ends in Japan, and the opportunity is actually the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I really hope that we will not do this by ourselves. Onegaishimasu.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
You.
This is it for today. Have a good evening. Monday is off, so next week we will continue and finalize the video of Rifkin.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.